for me, that was that Cuban music. You know, there was something in there which really spoke to me.
There's hundreds, thousands, millions of girls and boys all over the world. And there's very few that become the superstar, you know, on a Saturday night TV show. So it feels like there's something different, either in your mind or your body. Would you say it's either, or would you say it's both? You obviously had that. There was something that was electric.
There was something about ballroom dancing, about those rhythms, about those Cuban music rhythms, which really spoke to me. Like, I really loved it. I'm a young girl, I'm going out, I'm having fun, you know, dancing all night in dance clubs because I love it. Lots of my friends getting into relationship with so-called cool gangster guys. I'm about 18 and one of my girlfriends got shot.
Hi, I'm McCrystal and this is the New Mind podcast. Today's guest is Kristina Rihanoff. Now, you may know Kristina for various different things, including dancing on the telly, Strictly Come Dancing, and also for being a yoga teacher and businesswoman. As you know, this is a storytelling podcast, and I want to make sure that you hear the real stories, not just what you've heard in the press or seen on the telly. And so today we're going to delve into Kristina's life, and I know you're going to find it interesting. And any preconceived ideas that you've got because of press or because of what you've read, I think it's really important that you listen with an open mind and get to know Kristina and see her the way I do, actually, which is as a beautiful, warm human being. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for giving up your time. What people might not know about you is that you are probably the busiest person in the world.
Just about.
So for you to be here means a lot to me today.
Thank you, Ella.
And I introduced you there as, you know, you've been on the telly and you've got this business, but there's so much that's been said about you, I think, especially off the back of that show.
Yeah.
That and knowing you and meeting you and knowing this beautiful, warm, light being that you are, it really, I'm not going to mince my words here, it really pisses me off to see horrible stuff said about people when someone doesn't know you. But before we get to that stuff, I kind of want to let people know a bit more about your humble beginnings.
Of course.
And how you got to be basically the Russian Marilyn Monroe that we see today. Talk to me about your early years, your childhood. Tell me, when's the first memory that you've got, particularly around who you've become today?
Yeah, I think the earliest memory would be I'm about 4, I think, and my mom and dad have friends in a house, in little flats, not the house. We lived in tiny flats, but we were very happy living with my grandparents, my mom's mom and dad, and my aunt, who I thought was my sister because we're only 5 years apart and we shared the room and went to the same school. So I thought she was my older sister, you know,
wow.
for as long as I can remember. And then obviously it occurred to me she's actually my mom's younger sister. They just had 17 years difference, which is a lot, isn't it? Yes. So I'm 4 years old and I'm kicking my legs and dancing to my dad singing and playing music because my dad is a musician and he had a little band and they were playing in weddings and like other sort of gatherings and birthday parties. And he had that sort of group of 5-6 people, musicians playing all different instruments. And funny enough, which I think people will find fascinating, I'm dancing to a Cuban song.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It was something like, I think, Guantanamera, which is a quite famous kind of Cuban song. And the reason being, obviously, Russia and Cuba had very close connections back in social Russia.
Yes.
So going back all these years ago, I think a lot of people was like, how do you like Latin music, Cuban music? But obviously, if we're thinking
it makes
about,
sense.
I know, political kind of sort of times at that time, Cuba and Russia had those close connections, and a lot of foreign music wasn't allowed on our radio and TV, but Cuban music was there.
I mean, out of all the music, that's a good one to be allowed to listen to.
So danced to a lot of Latin tunes, and they played some kind of tune. I think it was the Guantanamera, shaking the maracas and all this like authentic sort of Cuban instruments like claves, like a 2 sticks. You know, I remember like people sitting around, and I just started twirling around and kicking my legs and doing a little performance. And my mom was saying, "Yep, she's a dancer. So, and I think shortly after I kind of went into that sort of little dance school and so on. So that's, I think, what I can recall sort of as an earliest memory.
That's so cute. I mean, it just goes to show actually how important dancing must have been for you to have that as quite a clear memory, because 4 is really young. Some people don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But for you to remember that, it obviously had such an impact on you.
Yeah.
So from there, you went to this little dance school.
Yeah, so I was in what we call kindergarten back in Russia, and we have a quite different system. Like here, for example, in the UK, you have the reception years, which is quite early, right? 4 or 5 years old. But we still kind of in that kindergarten. So our first year of school is when we're 6.
Yes.
So during that, basically what in here in school's reception, that's still in kindergarten back in Russia. Oh, it was at that time. And, you know, we kind of learned curriculums there, what I suppose here in the reception, like alphabet and so on. And we have different activities. So we had a dance teacher who was coming and doing a little bit of, you know, dance work with us, like disco and so on. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so when I went to school at the age of 6, my mom and dad received a letter saying I was chosen to go to her school if, you know, they're interested to bring me to do ballroom dancing. The other thing is that, and as any little girl in Russia, I suppose, you kind of want to be a big superstar in ballet world, because we have a lot of famous ballerinas,
Of course you do, yeah.
in Russia. So my grandmother as well, she was constantly kind of giving me books about famous Russian ballerinas, and we were watching ballet on TV. So I thought, like, well, this is it, you know, I will be the next prima ballerina.
Wow.
So my mom did take me to ballet school, but they, you know, were very strict actually with the kind of process of taking kids who actually kind of have a right body structure and a thing for it. And they said, look, she's very musical, she's very rhythmical, but she doesn't have a turnout in her hips. So any ballet positions, you know, for turning out will be very difficult for her, especially during like puberty and so on.
Wow, so they can see that
Yeah, they can see it at that early age, you know, like doing some exercises with me. And they said, you better take her to something like folk dancing or ballroom dancing. So that was it. I was 5, I think. The life was ending. The dream was ending. I was crying, you know, unconditionally on the bus home. And, you know, mom said, well, we'll just continue with that little dance kind of in kindergarten. So obviously the letter came and we went to ballroom dancing school. And I absolutely loved it from day one, because it had all this different type of music, obviously different dances. So it wasn't kind of one thing. And, you know, like perhaps in ballet, more or less kind of, you know, same thing. It was all this different type of dances and rhythms and speed of music, and I loved it. I loved that variety, so I kind of completely fell in love right away, and that was it. You know, that sort of passion, that fire for ballroom dancing was born, and yeah,
and
that was it.
And that was history made, really.
Yeah.
But you must have been natural at it, because there's hundreds, thousands, millions of girls and boys all over the world, and there's very few that become the superstar, you know, on a Saturday night TV show. So it feels like there's something different, either in your mind or your body. Would you say it's either, or would you say it's both?
Probably both. I would say maybe because I was surrounded by music all the time since I was very young.
Yeah.
And went to a couple of my dad's and his band performances. I think, you know, there was something like I kind of fell in love being under the spotlight, I think, through my dad. Because
Yes.
when I was little, I also remember it was some kind of performance and he took me on stage when I was very little, and I stood there with a sort of spotlight on him and me, and I felt like, I love it. Yeah, it's really, it feels amazing.
So it lit you up, literally.
Yeah, kind of like, you know, I feel like I'm meant to be there, you know, on stage under the spotlights. So, and I think as any little girl, we all love movement and music and kind of wiggling the hips and so on. But there was something about ballroom dancing, about those rhythms, about those Cuban music rhythms, which really spoke to me. Like I really loved it. Like
Well,
in my
passion.
core, like I really felt that's what I meant to do. And I don't know how to describe it. I think it is either that it's given or not,
Yeah.
We relate as human beings, I think, to different type of music, right?
Yes, we do.
Even if we want to listen something in the car, let's say, it doesn't have to somebody like classic music.
Yes.
Somebody likes really heavy rock, and for me, that was that Cuban music, there was something in there which really spoke to me.
Well, it's the language of love. It is a passionate, sexy music.
Yeah.
And although obviously children aren't thinking passion and sexy, it's either in your soul to have that kind of, like you say, the spotlight, the attitude, the pizzazz, whatever you want to call it. You obviously had that. There was something that was electric.
Yeah.
And that music
100%.
matched it. It's energy, really.
Yeah, some sort of energy, something that, like I said, spoke to me. It felt natural. It felt like I can express myself in different ways to those different type of music, the slow rumbas and fast, I don't know, samba and cha-cha-cha. It just felt great because you had all the shades, in music, and I loved it. Loved it since I was a kid.
Well, it shows that you're quite multifaceted, and you probably were even then. Like you are somebody, the girl that wanted to do ballet, that's beautiful. Obviously, ballet is incredible. But it's that, not just one style, but it's limited. Whereas the ballroom stuff, like you say, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's all the different colours, all the different shades rolled into one. So that's obviously something about you there as well, that you resonated with that. But the skill that it takes, I mean, let's not underestimate. I said at the beginning, you're like the busiest person in the world. But there's something about you, that work ethic. And to be the best, you've got to. I always think about Michael Jordan, basketballer. They just do it with Nike, because he would just practice and practice and practice and practice. And I guess you were the same.
Do you know what ballroom dancing, I think, is exactly that? You just have to keep going and the practice and relentless hours and just no end of working on yourself until you get it right. It's not done until you get it right. And the thing is with ballroom dancers, I'm sure all dancers, ballet as well, it's super technical, super difficult. But again, we're coming back to the variety. We have 10 different dances in ballroom dancing, right? 5 Latin, 5 ballroom. You've got to understand the history, the character, the musicality, rhythmicality, the technique, the partnership, with another person. There is so many layers, and then that emotional kind of level, of course, of the performance, which makes you different and separate you from others. There's so many different layers in that style of dance. And this is why it takes so much to be like at the top. It's really, really, really hard kind of road, if you wish, but yet so rewarding as well. And I think the discipline I've got from being in ballroom school is suited me well throughout life. It served me well.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of dancers like that, because everyone I know in my world who are from that world, several of my teachers at So Yoga here in Northampton actually also have a background. There's a ballet dancers, and they went to like Pilates and so on, and other sort of styles. We are a different breed, I must say. We sort of, it's like you just do it. You can crawl out of bed full of pain, and where the other person is like, this is it, I can't do it. We just get up and go.
That is a mind thing. That is a mind thing.
You don't get it done. You don't let other people down. You don't let other people down. I don't know. There's something in that training, like you said, mindset and physical and mental preparation, which just does not give a room for failure.
I love it. I love it. Not that I've ever been as good at anything physical as you have, but I'm fascinated by that mindset, by the desire, because to break that down further, and I think this has served you well with what has happened later on with, people not being always particularly very nice. Your mindset is everything, but you have to have the will to do it in the first place. So the passion, like the little girl who just responds to the music and the lights, the cameras, that sort of thing. But then you have to have this work ethic, which again, I don't know if there's a genetic predisposition with that. I don't know if it's more a cultural thing. I don't know if it's more just I want to be the best and that's all I care about. But that leads to a mindset which, if you haven't had that process, be it in sport, dancing is a sport, or even on the stage as an actor or an actress, if you haven't had that mindset, I don't think you can develop the same amount of discipline later on in life if it's not there when you're a child.
Yes, you probably can give me a better idea about the child psychology and how we formed. But going back to my upbringing, it was definitely something cultural. I think very much that, you know, you strive to be the best, you know, and you work very hard, you know. So at school, in after school activities, which were in our school, because obviously in that social Russia, everything was like, you know, and the government sort of, you know, it was for free for us, you know, which was amazing, because my mom and dad were just engineers. They wouldn't be able to like actually pay if that was commercial, let's say, like it is now. But we all were giving that chance to do something we want. There was many school activities, and I went to a few. I went to obviously like performing arts as well, like acting and singing, which was rubbish at singing. Okay, maybe with acting, did a little bit of like stage school and stuff. Dancing, and obviously there was sports, you know, gymnastics, ballet, basketball as well, volleyball, you know, all these kind of things, hockey. So in school grounds, after school, it was literally all these different pots, you know, all these different kind of classrooms, and we were all doing something. There were not really anyone on the streets wandering in that around doing God knows what, you know. We were all given the chance to do something until parents stop the work and come and pick us up, you know.
Different time, because wherever you're from in the world, I mean, we're of the same age roughly, and I think I didn't have a mobile phone in my hand until I was 19. And even then it was like to make phone calls. It wasn't, you know, to live off. So our childhood was developed around either playing outside. I mean, I was a very nature type of girl. I liked caterpillars and mud pies and all that sort of stuff, and playing outside. But we had the experience of having to entertain ourselves, be it through a discipline or be it through whatever you did. And that has gone now.
Oh gosh,
the ability to be in that position and have all these experiences. You know, you have to pay for everything, which of course is understandable. The world has to move. But in addition to that, though, I think what's interesting about your story, and the bit that maybe if you've read your book or you've followed you and understood some of the background to who you are, it actually wasn't an easy childhood. I mean, you had that as an escapism.
Yes.
But I know that at home it was often very, very difficult.
Yes.
And I always say there's very few people that are super successful that haven't had to, and not everyone, this is a, you know, generalization here, but most people that are super successful have gone through quite a lot of pain.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted to share sensitively the pain that you experienced early on, because your lovely partner Ben once said to me that Ben Cohen, for people that don't know, world champion rugby player, that, you know, the elite meets the elite, but he'd said Kristina danced her way out of Russia.
Yeah.
And when he said that to me, I've never forgotten him saying that. It wasn't a significant moment, but for most people it would have just been, oh yeah. But for me it was like, oh, that's really interesting. I knew there must be a deep story, and then obviously I know a bit about it now. But would you be so kind as to share some of that with us today?
Yes, of course. I think it's important to kind of go back to what actually made me who I am today.
Yes.
And there is a lot of that, like you said, social kind of influences and the family influences which shaped who I am today. Going back to kind of being a little girl, and like I said, mom and dad, and probably people who've heard that by now, thinking, oh, what a wonderful kind of, you know, setup at home. But it wasn't like that at all. So those kind of like memories, happy memories, there was a lot of negative ones too, because again, since I remember myself, my mom and dad constantly had fights and constantly were divorcing, and dad would leave for many like days and I wouldn't see him. And when he would come back and they would try to make it up, you know, and have a little party at home, whatever, it was very difficult time, really, because I couldn't really because I'm a child and I can't really understand what's going on, why dad is not around for many days and he's coming back. And when my mom is crying and then shouting and then they're making up. So now as an adult, I can obviously understand what was going on and so on. But you don't know as a kid, and you just navigating yourself.
What was the emotion? What emotion can you remember at the time?
I remember being very angry with my mom when she was shouting at dad when he was coming back home, and I was blaming her that he was leaving because I couldn't understand why she would be angry, because you don't understand as a kid what is the norm. Do they have to be together every single day, all day long? Why he's not there for 5-6 days and coming back, she's shouting, he's leaving again. So you don't really understand that dynamic as a kid.
Did you ever blame yourself?
Not until later,
right?
Until I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So when I was before teenage years, I suppose, it was just confusion, I would say, constant confusion, maybe anger toward my mom because I couldn't understand.
Well, you were matching her energy probably.
Yeah, because
that's all you
angry.
have. Yeah, that's interesting because the feminine energy in your house was angry because obviously we'll delve into why, but children have nothing else to go on but the energy, the atmosphere in the house. So you will resonate. A bit like sound healing. I always say that with sound healing, we resonate with the sound, which is why depending on the type of sound bath you go to, it allows you to match and resonate there. But it's the same with anger.
Correct. And then, but what was amazing, I think, for me is a little shield from all of that until I was about 11, because like I said, we lived with my mom's mom and my granddad, but that was my grandmother's second husband, right? My mom's stepdad, and they were very loving, very nurturing. My grandmother was absolutely wonderful human being, and we kind of had that stability from them. So up until I was 11 years old, when we moved out from that sort of flat, it was 6 of us living in 2-bedroom flat.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and but we were happy. It was happy times, because whatever was happening with mom and dad, it was kind of there, that sort of like negativity, but the core of it was quite stable, with my grandmother and my granddad, my aunt, we would, like, she would walk me to school and she would walk me back from school, or if I was staying in school to do my dance classes, somebody would pick me up, all these kind of things. So it was a stability there was some kind of good rhythms there going on, and I was able to develop, I think, well in that sort of scenario. Yes, it was always a bit of a negativity and confusion with my parents, and that was I don't know, when he was coming back, he was trying to, I guess, compensate for not being around, and he would be nice and kind of take me maybe to some dance classes, and then he wouldn't be around as well at all for a few weeks, and I couldn't understand why, and I was blaming my mom again, so it was all that. But meanwhile, I start competing. So I would start going to competitions. Like, let's say I'm age 7, I think, when it was first competition. And my dance teacher then was very driven, very strong. He actually knew my mom and dad on social kind of level. And he was, I think, kind of saying to her, she needs that kind of competition. She's made for that because she's a performer. So don't skip it, keep going. And again, it was very well organized, I guess, maybe just because how the whole country was operating. We were giving a bus, we were going to competitions, as a dance school. So I grew up in that sort of discipline and scenario that you work toward that little performance or competition on the weekend. Then you start again on Monday, and it was always kind of rolling into the next thing and the next thing.
Did that become like your savior? Because you had that to concentrate. You didn't have to think too much about whether dad was there and what was going on at home. Although you had that stability with your grandparents, this over here was the goal.
Yeah.
Your mind was just tuned in all the time.
Absolutely. I think it was naturally, because that dance world, it was beautiful, it was welcoming, it was making me feel good. It's almost like, as a kid, like, all right, it's not great, but I'm not going to think about it. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I gravitated to it more and more and more. So that was absolutely beautiful kind of way to grow up. And it was hard too. I wasn't the best at my school, actually.
Really?
I wasn't. And I think a lot of people sometimes think it's due to pure, talent and luck. And it's not that I don't have any of those things. I just don't believe it's just that. I think maybe I had some kind of, talent, musicality maybe wise. I mean, dancing, I can't even say in the first couple of years of competing that I was the best. There was a lot of kids in my school who were in the finals right away and did better than I was. But I wasn't really kind of down about it. I just loved performance itself, And I had my little partner and we danced. And I remember my mom and his mom sewing our outfits in the evening and taking us to the competitions next day. So it was really lovely, that whole kind of thing, to feel that you're doing something as a group.
And was it a family as well? That kind of, you mentioned the two mums and your partner. Yeah. Did you feel like you had family?
Yeah, it was kind of like that sort of environment that everybody works together for you to go and perform and actually succeed, that they're supporting you on that. So it was all quite, and I think naturally I just gravitated toward that world because it was stable, it was beautiful, and even though it was honest world, because if you don't deliver, you don't get judged well, but it's okay. You just have to work harder and aim for better. So from the very early age, I understood that I've got to work hard for the rewards.
It's a great lesson.
Trophies. It was just look, it's just the way it is. So we just have to put more time, more practice. And that became kind of my second nature, that this is okay. Yes, I was maybe crying when I was little if I wouldn't get into the final, but it wasn't like it's the end of the world and I'm gonna give up. Then my teachers and everybody around me was like, that's what sport is. You've just got to work hard.
It's not personal.
Exactly.
And actually now I think there's so many kids that are entitled because they haven't had, no, you're not good enough. You have to try harder if you want to be good enough. Yeah. That's how our brains operate. It's neuroplasticity. It's how we develop. It's how we mould. And the problem is that is severely lacking now.
Yeah.
And also in schools, some kids, and I'd imagine you're one of them. In fact, I remember TED Talk, Sir Kenneth Robinson is like a professor in education. And he was talking about, you might remember this better than me, I don't know her name, which is terrible. But I think she was the choreographer for the original Cats musical, and he referenced her in I think it was a TED Talk he did, and he basically said she would be considered neurodivergent now. She wasn't able to just sit and listen and do nothing. She needed to move. Her intelligence was movement, and obviously she went on to do Cats. So it just goes to show that children don't always do well just sitting and listening. They need to move, they need to be active, they need to learn through the lesson of rejection and pain. Otherwise, they've got no skills. And whilst all this difficult stuff's going on at home, there's a lot of negative energy as well as the stable energy. You're learning all these key life skills.
100%. And I think now you kind of broke it down from your side as well. I can see that sort of stability of dance school and keep learning, keep going, no matter what the at home is happening here, that negativity, that broken home in a way, that I still had to keep my mind occupied with just keep going, keep dancing, keep working hard, you will get there. And that, I think, what got me through more and more trauma and tragedy later in life.
I think you're right.
So it was kind of molded into me back then, and I think it's just the way I operate through everything in life.
I think you're right. And it's actually really beautiful, but if you can't always articulate that, some people don't get it because they're not able to focus. The emotion becomes dysregulated. So that I can be quite emotional myself, so it's not judging people that are dysregulated, but if you're dysregulated and you don't have that skill set, the dysregulation takes over. And actually it's not always a good thing to allow that to happen, because that's when we get out of control. And actually if we're out of control, we then carry shame and guilt and all those other things that then create and mold the character. So I think that discipline was integral to your development. The only question I would ask though is, at times, would it mean that you would repress or suppress emotion? In other words, if there was something, because we haven't really touched on your mum's relationship, you and your mum. Do you think that at times you repressed it and suppressed the emotion because you were so good at compartmentalizing?
Yeah, I suppose because I was angry with my mom a lot because of the dad situation, but she was yet the one who really took me to dance competitions, was making those costumes, going in travels with me. I had a lot of appreciation and gratitude for that, that she was doing that. My dad never did that, so even though I was angry with her about the dad situation, I think it was kind of, balancing it out really with the other thing that she was there for me in those early years, taking me through it. Now, there is a lot to say about, like you said, that maybe it's also like genetically, there is something in me that got me to be a hard worker and strive to be the best that I can be. I have to go back to my mom actually, because her story is quite fascinating too. She was born in a very small kind of like a small tiny town away from Vladivostok when I was born, and my grandmother and my mom's dad relationship was also extremely difficult and rocky, and he was an alcoholic, and he drank absolutely crazily and terribly, and pretty much every day. He would come home in the evening, that's what my mom was telling me later on, and he would be violent in front of my mom to my grandmother. He was beating her up. And my grandmother would take my mom in the middle of the night at 4 o'clock in the morning, my mom to her workplace, and they would sleep there on the floor, and my mom would get up and go to school. And she said the school she was in, it was one of those kind of, education was free at that time, but still you had kind of perhaps level of schools. It was quite privileged schools where all the kids were from, the people who were established, directors of businesses and factories, so like elite basically.
Yeah.
And there was my mom. And she was saying that, because also after school my grandmother didn't want to bring her home, worrying that the dad would be there, but she had to work. My mom would go to a friend's house. That friend was in a wheelchair, and he had a massive library basically of all sorts of books at home, and all my mom did after school, read. Wow. Read with this gentleman who was in a wheelchair. So she basically was like the pride of the school. She had gold medals throughout everything. She was sent to regional and even national, so throughout the whole of the country, competitions in math and physics and chemistry.
Wow.
And she would win them. It was insane, and I didn't really know that. So my mom was a super achiever because of that, because of what's happening at home for her as well, and the trauma she witnessed, that her own dad was beating my grandmother in front of her. She said, Kristina, I had to be the best. I didn't have things what my other classmates had, nice clothes and books, but I was in that friend house waiting for my mom to pick me up, and I would read books, all sorts of books, and studying and doing my homework, and so that's kind of my mom's background. So wow. She was she's extremely intelligent. She has 3 high educations because she went through all different things in life as well, trying to navigate. And she moved out of that little town to Vladivostok. She applied for university, and she went there, and she was a ship engineer. She was imagine draw ships.
Wow.
Yeah, cargo ships. I don't even know.
That's
kind of
mad.
I know. So how you have to be that, intelligent to actually be able to make drawings of the cargo ships and stuff like that for her exams and stuff like that. She was mad on literature. I mean, there isn't any books throughout my life I would ask her back. She didn't read all the classics around the world, and it is insane what her brain is contained. My mom is she's super intelligent, but it also came through that trauma in life, through her childhood and seeing abuse toward her own mom, and hence why my grandmother eventually left and remarried, and all these kind of things. So maybe there is something on a cellular level, on that sort of gene level, that
the
in
genetic
me
expression
to achieve and being the best.
Well, we haven't got the ability to do this, but I'm suddenly interested in your ancestral DNA, because I'm so interested in this method of like channeling pain into a discipline, which is obviously what you did, what your mum did, and potentially what her mum did, who knows. But that field of epigenetics, where we look at the way the DNA molecules change and how it changes the gene expression and how trauma is handed down, and also how like gifts are handed down, it's a fascinating area. And those learnt behaviours, that nature nurture debate, which obviously it's a bit of both, but clearly there's something in your brain structure that allows you to be able to really focus. But that's why I say, because it's interesting what I know about your mum, and the reason I'm asking about the suppression element, when you can compartmentalise through the discipline, because your mum then had a drink problem, didn't she?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering whether that discipline and that focus meant that she was actually suppressing the pain.
Yeah.
And then as she got older, she started to self-soothe with alcohol, as her father had done.
Yeah.
So tell me about when you started to be aware of that, because that must have been very difficult for you.
Yeah. So what happened then the kind of my dad going away for a long period of times became quite apparent and long. He would like not be around for a month or so. Now, again, we're going back to sort of social Russia and like certain, kind of pressure. I think society pressures on the adults. You don't divorce. You work through it till the end. In X and Y and Z. And my mom obviously very much tried. She wanted to keep that kind of family, together. My dad wasn't interested, because any little money he would make as sort of, having a band, he would spend on the band, on his own music. He thought he was the next big composer or whatever, singing superstar. He wouldn't put anything for my family, for my dance development, for my kind of mom, perhaps having extra money for us, which created obviously a lot of negativity between them and screaming fights. And the fights were quite violent, not physically, but like he could throw something at her, like whatever, like a book, let's say, I don't know. And the mom would scream, and I would just sit in the, next room to them and thinking, oh my God, I just want to go to dance school now. And it became quite a clear thought. I just need to get out and go to my dance school. That is my happy place.
Yes.
That's where I want to be. I don't want to be at home. I don't want to be around my mom and dad. And then it's kind of all start falling like a dominoes around me. What happened was that because we're in that system, a social kind of a socialistic Russia, we had at that time how we would get like places to live, like flats and so on, that when you work at in your like place, let's say some organization for quite some times, they can give you like a flat, for example, to live. So my dad was actually because he was also an engineer, they were social services were coming around, and they would see that we like 6 of us living together, although like it was a very happy place really for us, like cooking together, celebrating all the like Christmases together and stuff like that. They were still coming around. Okay, yeah, you need the space, the 2 kids are growing, I'm like 10 years old now, so we need bigger space and all this kind of thing. So he got a flat. And so I'm about 10, 11 years old. We're moving out to a new flat, which is like in a new build area, like a new, let's say, kind of neighborhood, which doesn't have any infrastructure. So I had to travel far, to like my dance school and, obviously a new school, actual school where I would have to go.
Quite a big change.
Yeah, massive change. So we're moving away, new school, can't really travel back to my dance school there, and all this kind of thing. So I'm losing my support group, right?
Yeah.
All around me, support system. And at the same time, which I found out much later, my grandmother gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And I didn't know that for quite a long time. So my mom kept it to herself. And she just didn't want, I don't know why she didn't really want to. I think we knew that she was unwell and she was sick and she was in the hospital, but we didn't know the diagnosis. Only my mom knew, and only she knew that it's terminal as well.
Oh.
So she would go after work to the hospital and this and that. And I remember my grandmother came back to the flat, to the old flat, and I would still travel every weekend and stay with them, with my aunt and my grandmother and my granddad. And because I loved them, and it was just like, I didn't want to lose that. And I remember coming there, and she is in bed and she's not really able to talk because she's so unwell. Obviously, I'm a kid. I don't really understand how bad this is, so... And I kind of like just, understand that something isn't very well. So it's all this happening, and it's really like not great because so many changes at the same time. I see my mom just being fading away, just being absolutely exhausted, not sleeping, crying all the time. So my dad, again, nowhere to be found. He's coming and going, all these kind of things. Thankfully, my new school, it was literally my sort of building, and like a couple of the, staircases down, there was a school. And also, luckily, it was just God-sent thing for me then, that there is a ballroom dancing teachers, a husband and wife, who is setting up a dance school. So, I started going there, obviously, and that was really wonderful because it was really kind of like a big deal for me to have it right in my doorstep. But it was still all new, so I don't really know the people, they don't know me.
You don't have safety yet.
Yeah, and I can't really tell them too what is happening back home.
Yeah, because you don't know them.
Because they're all new. So... And then I remember a day where I don't remember why I wanted to call my mom. I can't remember what was the reason. And so obviously no telephones. You have to walk somewhere, put the little pennies and call my mom at work. And I called her work, and I said, "Oh, can I ask for Larissa, for my mom?" And someone said to me, "She's not at work because her mom died." So this is how I found out.
Oh no!
And I was just in shock and disbelief. So I came back home. I didn't say anything to anyone. I went back to dance school after school, and only in the evening I saw my mom coming home, obviously all broken in tears, and she said, "I know you found out. So this is what's been happening. My grandmother is very unwell, and she had an ovarian cancer, stage 4, when she was diagnosed." And my mom knew all about the chemotherapy and all this kind of things, and she just didn't want to say anything to me or to a younger sister, to my aunt.
Yes.
So she was kind of protecting all of us, but you can understand what it did to her mental health.
Well, she just held it all in.
Yeah.
And your dad was nowhere around to be supporting her.
Yeah, so unfortunately he was not. And I did see at that time that she would have friends coming in the evening, and they would lock themselves in the kitchen and just have a drink, have a bottle of wine, a bottle of vodka, whatever it is, and she would be drinking and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I suppose that's what it is. I didn't really pay attention to it, that it was getting into a really severe addiction, just like it was with her own dad. And so we had a funeral that came around, and and he was sort of trying to be there for a few days or so, but I guess it was so broken at that time. He stayed for a while, then he left again, and because I'm already older, I'm a teenager, I kind of understand already that mom and dad not in the same room, in the same bed. He's sleeping in one room, she's in another. He's not really paying attention to what's going on. It's becoming now clear to me that
you're
relationship,
starting to push it,
you
understand,
is going to be broken, and mom is spiraling out of control and heavy drinking. So he kind of left really again a few months later after the funeral, and I sort of became a self-sufficient little adult. I was getting up, dressing myself, getting whatever there is in the fridge mom was cooking still, and then, getting to school, after school to dance school. And if she was at home, great. Some nights she wasn't at home. So I would stay by myself. So
because had her drinking got out of control at that point?
Yeah, it was really, really bad. And she, perhaps, I would think, if she was that drunk to come home, or didn't want me to see that,
yes,
she wouldn't come home. So I could call my granddad, or my aunt, and they would come around just to check on me. But I literally start kind of looking after myself
at
the age of 11 and 12. Yeah.
So you're at home alone, and you have to get up, you have to do everything yourself. So like you say, you're living like an 18-year-old would, but several years prior, after losing your nan who you'd lived with all your life, grandmother, and then your dad not being a stable factor in your life at all, and now your mum's ill because she's got this addiction.
It was really because I obviously also didn't realize that it could be very much hereditary as well, that alcohol dependency again brought up a lot of anger toward her in me. Why you're not around? Why are you ignoring me? Why you're not loving me? Why you're not nurturing me? Why you're not at my dance competitions where all the parents are there and you are not there and I'm by myself, so all this resentment and anger which have built up, toward my mom. And it brought all these triggers from, I guess, when I was little. You're not a good mom. You're not looking after me. You don't care. Why you're not loving me, and all this kind of thing. So that started piling up in that resentment, toward my own mom. Not understanding that she is herself basically needed help, professional help. At that time, and then she would come home and being drunk and missing work, and all this kind of things. So it and again, I can't even share it with anyone in my dance school, but in my dance school, my dance teacher, because they were husband and wife, they literally became my parents.
Wow.
Without knowing that, because I spent so much time with them, because thankfully we still kind of paid by government all of our sort of dance tuition and stuff like that. And we were traveling a lot. We were even going to like big performances to like Moscow and like other places. Travel a lot, but thankfully, because it wasn't like paid by the parents, it wasn't like nobody would really get what it is happening at home, because it was
no one knew.
Nobody knew. And I was ashamed to say it to everyone. I can't. It was a shame to say my parents divorced, never mind that my mom is an alcoholic.
Well, at that age, even though you're a young teenager, you can't. The only thing that a young person can do before they have the benefit of wisdom and hindsight, which doesn't develop until 21, 25, is self-abandon and go, I'm ashamed because it's a reflection of me. And so the child always sees, like we said earlier, the child sees themselves through the I don't even know how you put it, dysfunction of the adults that are meant to be looking after you. So the child sees themselves as dysfunctional to a point, in the sense that they can do this, but I don't want you to know me. So the wall goes up.
And also, you obviously start thinking that you are somehow not worthy of love, because you're not getting it from mom and dad now, both, and the grandmother not around to give it to you. So you're losing all of that nurturing and love by the family, which you meant to have as a kid. So you start thinking, am I not good enough? Why am I not loved? Why am I not supported, through that grief of losing my grandmother? And then, the parents still not there, the dad isn't still not there to help. So something must be wrong with me. That's where you start thinking about, something must be wrong with me. I'm not worthy of love. And the only way I feel loved or appreciated is through dance. And because I'm on stage and people love what I do, so you get that very not fake, but sort of inadequate understanding what love is.
Yeah, because you're now associating feeling loved with performing.
Exactly.
So if I perform, people love me.
Yeah.
But if I'm not performing, nobody loves me.
So you're just feeling that you can only be you can express yourself, you can be appreciated and loved only if you dance and if you're good at it.
Yeah.
So I pushed myself super hard to be that, because that was my only way. And I maybe in some way, I don't know, it's almost like reflection on myself back then, that I probably at some point thought, actually, that is what I meant to do, because through that I get all that nurture and love and appreciation rather than at home.
Which is where I said earlier about the pain, about super successful people.
Yeah.
I said so many super successful people have really learned that they are worthy when they push themselves to a limit that most people can't understand. You mentioned that earlier, I'm not worthy. So as a soul, as an entity, as an essence, I'm not worthy. But if I perform, or for some people that might be fixing something or pleasing somebody. For you, it was pleasing a whole entire audience.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people to please.
Yeah.
And so you're, I guess then the search for love is very different for you as you develop. Which actually takes us neatly on to the development of self through the eyes of the child that doesn't feel worthy, not only from a professional point of view, but also later on in relationships and so on. Because, I know, and I know that you know, that when you've come from a traumatic or abusive home, where there's neglect, it could be emotional abuse, sexual abuse, it doesn't matter what the abuse is, but where there's a form of abuse or neglect, your search for love is very different. You can end up in quite difficult situations in terms of relationships.
Correct.
Because you are seeking something that innately wasn't given to you in the right way.
Yeah.
And that can lead to toxic relationships.
100%. And also you don't know what the real love is.
Yes.
You don't know what the family is, because although I had more or less stability until I was basically 10 through my grandparents, because I spent my formative years, of the teenage years without that love.
Yeah.
And then I only saw the pain in my mom and dad relationship. I have that, and I think in my head that any relationship actually between man and a woman can only be dysfunctional.
Yes.
Because that's what I witnessed.
Yeah.
And I almost like, I don't want that. I don't want that pain.
Yeah.
I don't want that headache, what my mom went through.
Yeah.
I don't want to be sick like her.
Yeah.
I don't want to have nervous breakdowns like her.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in relationships.
Makes sense.
And I don't want to be loved. I want to be loved on stage through my dancing and through my performance, but I don't want to have anything of that nature in my personal life.
So for those that perhaps don't understand this, the brain is actually wiring that way. That's not just an emotional choice. It's not just an intellectual choice. The neurons fire and wire together, and the feedback loop is formed, and it's ingrained and it's automatic. So it becomes part of the subconscious thinking. Actually, unconsciously you become avoidant.
Yeah.
Unconsciously you're saying, this is safe. I'm using hands. If you're listening, you won't, but I'm gesturing. But one element of love is safe and one element of love is not safe. I will avoid the unsafe and I will go to the safety. And so that then, I spoke about the wall. It is like a wall, isn't it? Like you can have this version of me, but I don't trust you to have this version of me because you're going to hurt me.
Yeah.
So when did that become conscious that you had done that? Your brain had done that, not you, but your brain had adapted.
I think a little bit later, to be fair. We get to this because I think, I myself had to understand why I have failed relationships, why I don't really invest into them to blossom and be good, because at the back of my mind, all of the relationships are just bad.
Yes.
All of the men will let me down.
Yes.
They are as bad as my dad. Nobody will care, because my dad didn't care for me nor for my mom. And going back to her being sick and being now spiraling out of control and having proper blackouts from alcoholism, you know, I had to one night, literally when she passed out, because she actually wanted to kill herself.
Right.
So she took a bunch of pills and, you know, and she said she doesn't want to live anymore. And I was basically putting my 2 fingers in my mom's throat.
Wow.
Making her all throwing it up while knocking on the door to my neighbors and saying, could you please call my granddad, my mom isn't well. So they came around and we called the ambulance and she was taken.
How old are you then?
I'm 12, I think, at that time, 12 or 13. So
what
like
trauma.
you can see where like why would I want a relationship, because that's what my mom experienced.
Of course.
And she didn't want to even live anymore. So and then she went in rehab. Then she came back, then she went out of rehab again. So it was there and back quite a few times, to be fair. She had lots of sort of trips until the very last one. And that was the hardest for the both of us. And I didn't want a relationship with my mom anymore. And it's really scary to say that I came to a point where I thought it would be easier for me if my mom wasn't around.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think when you watch someone go through addiction, you're not the first person to say that. There's a point of like, I can't do this anymore. I can't see this. I can't fix it. And it's too painful. I mean, that level of trauma is just extreme, isn't it? To have to put your fingers in your mum's throat to make her be sick so that you could save her life, essentially. Yeah. What a lot of weight on a little girl's shoulder.
And you think like, she doesn't want to be around. She doesn't want to be living for me. So then why do I need a mama? You know, why do I need somebody who completely doesn't value me at all? She doesn't want to live. She doesn't want to be around me. So you're thinking that's your fault.
Of course.
You know, and you still, like I was still like, 12, 13 years old. So when it was a long 2 years going into rehabs and back. And by that time, you know, I think I'm already 15, nearly 16. My dance teacher, I did eventually told them that my parents divorced and I had very difficult, you know, sort of, you know, life at home. I didn't talk about alcoholism with my mom, but they kind of knew a little bit that, you know, I was nearly living at home by myself. And my dance teacher asked me to help him with the little ones, like little toddlers, you know, to teach. And I started taking like tiny little money myself. And it was amazing feeling of like confidence that actually I'm good on my own. I can make money on my own. I can live on my own. I can make a living out of my passion and my dancing. So that kind of came around that time when my mom was on her last sort of that trip in rehab. And I remember we already had like a home phone by that time. And I got a call from her doctor, from her psychiatrist in that rehab facilities. And he said, you know, your mom about to be released and go home. But she is really worried that the only reason for her to leave is really you and repair your relationship with you. And I said, I'm not interested. I don't want to talk to her. And he said, would you come and meet me? Would you talk to me? I said, yeah, of course. Okay, I'll do it. So we spoke, and he was a very kind man, and he kind of made me understand a lot of things, not just her, it's also her, you know, genes from from my granddad, from her father, who was also an alcoholic. So then the events in life and what happened with the mom, with the grandmother, when my dad not having any support system, trying to protect me from the pain of losing grandmother and so on. And he kind of made me feel that I ought to give her that chance and rebuild the relationship. And so we did. You know, she came home. It was hard because I'm already nearly an adult, doing my own thing, living my own life without her, you know. And all of a sudden she said, oh, you can't go out after, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I am going. I've been doing it without you, you know.
I've been on my own.
Yeah, I've been on my own. Like, basically, who are you to tell me, you know? And then that's what kind of that friction and that sort of, thing. We work very hard, both of us, to get to the point where we at now, many decades later.
Yeah.
But like at that time, and thankfully that was it. So 30 years of not drinking now. So I'm very proud of my mom.
Incredible, really. Incredible, because that's a journey just before you've even left Russia. That whole life that no one sees, because they see this beautiful, like I said to you as you were coming down the stairs here, first time I saw you on Strictly Come Dancing, I was like, wow, she's amazing. It's Marilyn Monroe on the dance floor. It was just this moment of, I remember it very well. And you look different to all the other dancers. You definitely had that old school glamour thing about you, and I remember that you stood out. I think if you've ever been a fan of Marilyn, that you noticed the other the sort of look-alike, if you like. And so before you've even got to that point, there's a whole load of history.
There's a lot of history,
before that, and that's really where we know you in the UK. But the Russia thing, so you repair the relationship. But then obviously your dancing must have really been taken off for you to...
Yeah, it's dancing becoming really like the only thing I really want to do in my life. Nothing else matters, no relationship matters. I had like my first love, let's say. I was 17, so much later than all the other girls in my school already had boyfriends, whatever, going out, drinking in the evening, God knows what. And I was never around. I was just, again, in dance school, already teaching, making a little money, start buying things for myself, start, buying little outfits for myself, which made me feel so good and made me feel like, I can do it all on my own. I don't need anybody, And I think that, again, that's sort of like, I think in a lot of relationships, why perhaps didn't work and fail, because I never made another person feel that they are valuable to me in any shape or form, or they can do anything for me. I don't need anybody, because that's how I live my life. I don't need anyone. I can do everything myself.
Yes.
And that's that. I don't want to be dependent on anyone. I can make my own living. I know what I want, so it's all that.
And you can't help that, by the way.
You can't help that.
Because that is the way your brain has been forced to develop. So when people sort of say, she's this or she's that, if you've had to develop the same way, that's how you would be too.
Yeah.
You have to be.
I had no choice. I had to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that's what, a lot of people might think that I'm selfish and self-centered and egoistic and solitary. But it's coming from a place, there was no other way to live my life when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I had to adjust to what I was going through, and I had to find a way, and that was that. And at that same time, the whole kind of country falling apart. We going through the dissolution of Soviet Union. So everything falling apart. There is no anymore any ism. Not the communism, not the socialism. There is nothing. And we don't know what we believe in, where we're going as a country, as a society. So there is no stability. There is on a kind of social level, and, everything falling apart, racketeering, like lots of crazy things going on, it just was a really difficult, crazy times
after your already very difficult experience.
And again, the dancing is like that constant kind of saver for me. That's the only thing I can still do. It's the only thing can keeps me kind of in line and kind of giving me purpose in life. And I'm a young girl. I'm going out. I'm having fun, dancing all night in dance clubs because I love it. Lots of my friends getting into relationship with so-called cool gangster guys. I'm about 18, and one of my girlfriends got shot. Outside of the dance club with her boyfriend, who is a top of a gang. And somebody literally, they're coming out of that nightclub 5 o'clock in the morning, and they just get killed. The whole car covered in gunshots, and both of them killed in that car. And we are going to funeral, and I'm looking from outside at all these girls who are already either in relationship or married, who have kids, and for them, the only thing they wanted to do at that time is just to marry well, if you wish, to be with someone who is like that guy, that gangster with some money, whatever, business. And I'm looking at all of them, and the penny drops that I have to get out.
Yes. So that's actually a defining moment for you.
I'm looking at my girlfriends, in the coffin, and I was like, why is she there?
Yeah.
Why? That girl, beautiful girl who was studying to be a nurse, like kind-hearted, wanted to be delivering babies, being a nurse, and in sort of maternity unit, just losing her life for what? Like what is the purpose? And it's, to me, was like very, I don't want to be married to anyone, definitely to any of these kind of people.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and thinking, I've got to do something about it. So because the country becoming open and we can travel, and I remember that a few of my friends now moved to different countries. They're like some to Europe, some to the States. And I had that one friend, she was from St. Petersburg, and she moved to Arizona, and I know she was dancing there. Mind you, still no mobile phones. Well, I didn't have one, obviously. Only like the cool people had those, and money people. So, but I was going to a dance competition, and there was a dance teacher from Japan, actually. And we traveled to Japan a few times with my dance school for dance competitions and like exchange and stuff like that. And I'm seeing that teacher, and I said, I know you're going to America. Would you pass my letter to my friend Yulia? And he said, yeah, of course, I'll see her and stuff like this. So I wrote her a letter, and basically didn't really ever think that nothing ever will come off of that at all. It was one of those like voices in your head, gut feeling, if you wish. Who can you ask for advice? And all I wrote to her, I said, look, I know we dance on the same circuit. You also was with this dance company I was with for a while. What would you recommend? What can I do? Is there like dance schools who were looking for dance teachers or something? Didn't think in a million years anything is going to happen. And one day, I think about a year later, I get a phone call on my home number, and this very, like, with a strong accent, like a Russian, obviously speaking person with a strong accent, saying, hi, I'm Yulia, I'm calling you from the States, about your letter. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, how are you? She says, yes, all good, sorry I didn't write back, or whatever, but I said, and she said, you know what? I have a few dance schools here in the state who are really looking for dance teachers, Russian-speaking teachers, because lots of families moving from different republics, ex-republics of Russia, to the States. And they're everywhere, and the kids, obviously ballroom dancing was always massive in Russia. So all these Russian kids or Russian-speaking kids who want to continue ballroom dancing, but they don't know the language yet, and there's no one to teach them because the kids' ballroom dancing wasn't really that yet developed in America. And they kind of are, getting the Russian teachers, and they helping them with visas and tickets and everything. Would you consider something like that? I said, I would, but I want to dance myself because, I'm still like young. I'm 20, I still want to dance myself. I already have a dance school. I'm running it with my dance teacher myself now and taking the kids all over the country to compete. So like, okay, I'll have a look at the place which will be suitable for you. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. But then going back to my dance school now, unfortunately, my dance teacher, the wife, Olga, she was killed in a car accident.
Oh my
So she
gosh.
passed away, while I'm 20. And my dance teacher asking me to step in and help. And he's himself started drinking really badly too. And I'm kind of running the school really. Wow. At the age of 20. I'm running a big dance school taking kids to competitions, you know, teaching the little ones, taking the older ones to comp. So I'm full-time a dance teacher with a full like job, basically.
And
if
you're
you wish.
20.
I'm 20. Yeah. So this is why I was saying to me in my mind, I was like, well, why do I need to go anywhere? I have the money and I have the job here, you know, and I don't want to leave everything in the family, just, you know, just switch and be again a dance teacher. Yulia calling me back in a few months and saying, look, there is a school in New York, and I knew who the teachers were because they were quite famous ex-Russian professional couple who moved to New York and opened a dance school. They have lots of kids there. They're looking for dance teachers. Would you consider? And I said, no. I said, I don't want to go to New York and just teach. I want to dance myself. And all of my friends like, are you out of your freaking mind? Pack your bags and bloody go if you have a chance. Are you insane? I'm like, nope, I want to dance myself and I can't leave the kids here. It has to be worthwhile, you know. So I'm saying no to New York. And everybody like, you are insane. Get yourself out there. Do something for you. Like, but I always had that very sense of helping others and be there for them.
Yes.
And not letting anyone down. I think that's another thing which is very much drilled in our dance world. You cannot dance until you're dead. Like, if you're dead, even if you're dead, it's not excuse not to dance. Like, you know, it's like one of those scenes from the famous film, like, what do you mean she's dead? She can't be dead. She has to be on the floor. She has to perform.
She's due here now.
Yeah, she's due now. Like, she has to go dance. This is kind of our mentality. Like, I danced through severe injuries and being sick and crawling on the dance floor, like with my like foot blown up from like an injury or knee or like 40 temperature, you know, done it all, you know.
Wow.
And that's a little bit like in our dance world, it's unspoken ethical code. You do not let your mates down. You do not let the dance company down. You don't let your partner down. You there unless it is like you dead. You know?
Never a truer saying, the show must go on.
Yeah.
No matter what.
No matter what. Nobody gives what's happening. You've got to be there.
Yeah.
And the thing, again, this is embedded in me is through like all these years of competing. And when I was making now those choices, like I cannot let the school down. I can't go. I can't let all these kids just be wandering around with no teacher. And so, said no. And only probably another good year later, I again getting a phone call, and she said, okay, there is a guy in Seattle. I was teaching him with his dance partner. She actually got pregnant, wants to now have a family. He's a professional dancer. He wants to carry on competing. And also he works in a school where they need like, you know, a dance teacher. They will do your visa. They will do your travel, everything kind of thing. So, and we're starting the process for that. And that process takes a few months, obviously, to do all these ins and outs. And, you know, it's difficult because, again, to get visa to America from Russia was like unheard of. And I had to do all sorts of like different things and like tests, if you wish, and whatever, and medicals and this and that. And I got the visa, and all my friends was like, that is unbelievable, because a lot of them already got refused by that time. And obviously, and a lot of people maybe thought that I went there on like a marriage visa, and it wasn't. It was a work visa.
Wow.
In my life was always about work and because of my skills. It wasn't because of anything else. So when I finally got that visa and got myself on the plane to Seattle, Washington. Well, no, first I went to Moscow and then to Seattle with $100 in my pocket, because that's all I had. And everything else I left to my mom. So I was going there with $100 in my pocket and just believe that it's going to work somehow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you then end up in Seattle, from Russia to Seattle, after saying no to New York. You're there in Seattle, and you're going to be the dancer, and you're going to be the teacher. Yeah. Everything you had said, I'm not coming unless I get this and this.
Yeah.
And then that perseverance and that absolute, that's my boundary, that's my rule. And then it happened.
Yeah, I think you have to wait for perhaps the things you really want and not negotiate, like you said.
You knew what you wanted.
On your standards and your boundaries. And I think, again, that's another thing which sometimes, I don't know if you sometimes feel like that, because you have those high standards for yourself. You expect them from others, and sometimes you feel you get a lot of resistance from others because of that, and you consider to be difficult, and you consider to be a nightmare to work with because of this and that. But
only because you're a woman, by the way.
I know.
If you're a man, that's like, oh yeah, fine. He said he wants this, and this. But as a woman, if you have those boundaries, and if you assert what you want, now you're aggressive.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Carl Jung, who I love as a psychologist and as a philosophist, really, he always talks about the anima and animus, which is the feminine and the masculine, and we all have it within us at all times. And so why aren't we allowed to assert the masculine energy without being told we're this, that and the other? Why can't a man assert his feminine energy without being told he's this, that and the other? And actually, if you want something done properly, you have to be quite assertive. And if someone else wants to see that as aggressive, that's on them, not on you. It's only because they're not prepared to push their standards that high.
Yeah.
And that's because they're not prepared to work as hard as you have. So it is all perception. And I always think that people need to have that wider perception, because you don't know why someone is that way. And quite frankly, when I said to you before you couldn't help it, when we talk about the conditioning and, you know, your personality is a reflection of your reality, your brain literally wires that way. Yes, you can rewire your neuroplasticity and you can reframe the way you think as you get older, but at that point in your life you needed to just get through what was going on. And so your brain naturally wired around getting through that real laser focus, those high standards, good boundaries, and it led you to Seattle, which was then, I guess, the domino effect.
Yeah, that's kind of the next chapter really, which led me to what I am now.
We're in Seattle now, and life is very different, I expect. Tell me what your first sort of thoughts are. You land in this alien land.
I know. I think it was such a massive cultural shock because, I mean, you first of all, I at that point, I don't know English at all. I can only say my name is Kristina and that's it.
Oh my gosh,
I never studied really English because I thought, well, why do I need to do that? You know, we close country. I'm never going to travel to America or anything like that. So I didn't really sort of put any thought to it and just didn't really bother with that, which was really silly, of course. I'm lucky really because the family I was with, my dance partner family, the mom was a teacher. She was a principal is actually in one of the schools. She was ever so kind. She was ever so helpful, you know, like just studying basic language. And also I signed up for like an English second language classes in the evenings and so on. Apparently I'm landing in that kind of crazy world, very different world. Beautiful. Seattle is very beautiful, very similar to my city, Vladivostok, because it's also a seaport. And where I lived in my room was in that house, you know, is coming into that sort of seaport. You can see it from one side. And I see those cargo ships, you know, which are with the same signs as in Vladivostok. And it just kind of made me feel that maybe I'm not that far away, or even though I'm far away. And yeah, the whole different kind of life begins. And the thing is, I had to understand that sort of culture where everybody's smiling at you and you're like, what is going on? You know?
Why are you smiling?
Why are you smiling? You know, and that you have to smile because I was not told off, but I was told by the my dance partner, and that his friends was asking, what's wrong with Kristina? She's not well, or she's not liking us because she never smiles, she doesn't say how are you. And I was like, well, it's not in my culture, I don't really know that. But so I'm learning language, but at the same time I'm obviously start practicing, doing my dance practices, start teaching little groups of kids, Russian speaking children from all over different kind of ex-republics of Russia. Because again, it's like interesting why I ended up in Seattle, because Microsoft quarters in Bellevue, which is a small town next to Seattle, so that Washington state, and so Microsoft quarters there, and there was literally villages of Russian-speaking families moved from all over from Russia and Russian ex-republics there to work for Microsoft.
Oh, wow.
So you have all these kids there who love ballroom dancing, no dance teachers. Because in America, dancing is more like a social thing you do for adults.
Yes.
You have schools like Fred Astaire chain of dance schools and Arthur Murray chain, but it's more like, again, it's a business, and it's like for adults, let's say, to come and learn ballroom dancing, maybe do dance competitions, what we call pro-am, where professional dancing with amateur, but not exactly kids. So that was kind of a big first wave, in this, like, that we were talking about 2001. I moved in 2001 to the States.
So 22 years ago.
So it's all of a sudden blossom in the States. They never really kind of had that much kids dancing, and all of a sudden there's like tons of them because of all these families immigrating to the States. So and the life began there. It was really hard. I remember, again, because obviously it was a luxury to make even a phone call. It was so expensive. The family was wonderful, but I would have like one phone call a week, with my mom. But I would write letters, obviously I was writing letters to my mom. I still have them in my box, and her letters to me. And the thing about 6 months into my life there, I was like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I want to come back. Nobody understands me. I can't speak to anyone. It's really hard, And she's like, writing me back, Kristina, you've got to try. What are you gonna do here? There is nothing for you to do here. You can't really, you can go back to teaching, but there is no next step for you in our city to develop your dance career, because it's only like Moscow, like other sort of big cities in Russia. Mind you, that's what people don't understand, that Russia is so massive.
Of
and
course
Vladivostok is like, we're talking about very east. It's an hour-and-a-half flight to Tokyo and an hour to Korea. So I'm on the opposite side. I'm on the Asia side,
That's crazy.
I wasn't born in Moscow, and I wasn't born in St. Petersburg. And out of those cities, a lot of dancers moved out into Europe and other places. I'm literally probably the only one, who I know from any of the dance world from that region moved to anywhere like States and anything like that. So, it's just kind of events which kind of presented themselves. But yet I think I kind of, because of my drive to do the best and do it the way I wanted it, I ended up taking those chances and saw those opportunities. And when I went back home, after a few years already dancing in the States, and saw some of other dance teachers and ex-dance teachers of mine, and just like that dance society who's like, oh, we're so proud of you. It's amazing to have somebody from our region making so far. You're ever so lucky. And I remember my dance teacher said, she isn't lucky. She's the hardest working person I know.
That is not luck.
And it's not luck. And I can't say it's luck either, because those opportunities were there for everyone, to be fair. And I had other girls, and even my dance school, who were, I believe, way more talented than me. But they were like, oh, I can't go. I can't leave my family. I can't leave this, and I can't do that. And it was deeply difficult for me to leave my mom as well, after what we went through,
of course,
and worrying that she's gonna relapse and maybe drink again and all that. But my mom was like, you've got to go. You've got to take the chance. Everything aligned for you to go. The stars aligned. You've got to go. Everything happened.
And you made sure that the boundaries that you set were met.
I was going because exactly what, I wanted to do. So, but of course, when you by yourself in a new city, nobody speaking your language, like you dived into that crazy world, not just the actual American society and life there, but also dance world there.
Yeah.
So again, not negativity, but a bit of a like, who is she kind of thing,
Yeah.
You can sense it very, very strongly. Some people were extremely kind and welcoming and some not,
That's tough.
You're
still a young girl, really, at that point.
It's tough, and you feel that negativity, and you kind of look down on you and all this kind of things. And then there I was. Well, I'm here, and I'm doing what I need.
To it.
I need to do what I came to do. I will work hard. I will, not let my partner down. I'll do something for myself. And again, the moments I start making any little money, I start sending them back home to my mom by Western Union, at that time, anybody who remembers that.
Yeah.
So start sending mom some money so she can have a better life. And I think about 9-10 months later, I went back, to Russia to see her in September. And it was really crazy, like, spend a year basically in the States and fly back home and see some of my friends, same exactly place, doing same exactly thing. And it's just kind of proven to me that I've made the right choice.
So you now have the ability to reflect because you can see the difference and to say, actually, thank God I pushed through and decided to carry on with this. Yeah. Do you realise at that point that your life is going to be very, very different? Do you realise how different?
I think so, because when I came back, I wanted to go back so badly. I was so homesick, and I just was like really missing my best friend, missing my mom, missing my aunt. And but when I got there and I spent 2 weeks and I had to fly back, I was like, I'm ready to go because there isn't anything here for me to do anymore. And it's only my friends and family who really kind of kept me there, basically.
The comfort.
Yeah, the comfort of that. My dad tried very hard since he found out that I moved to the States. He was writing me letters for forgiveness and for all this kind of things. I think I responded to him once. It was kind of 10 years too late.
Yeah.
For those letters, if you wish. And I saw him, obviously, when I went back and he was parading me around his friends. He is already remarried by that time. And the wife is my age, a year younger, actually. And I said to him, look, I'm extremely happy for you that you have somebody who actually loves you for who you are. And I'm happy you have that. And I don't have anything else to say because I've worked very hard not to carry on the anger and the pain. And yourself, when the pain is there, you become numb at some point. You just become numb.
Yeah.
And then it becomes irrelevant. It's not kind of there anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You go through the phase. It hurts, and then your body has to do something with that pain. If you can't change it, then you go into the numb, and then the switch goes off.
Yeah, and I became free. I became free from that pain and that kind of heaviness on my shoulders that I have, that all this pain from my dad and my relationship with him and a broken relationship with him and him asking for my forgiveness. And it got to the point, and I read lots of books at that time as well. I got to the point that I needed to kind of be my own psychiatrist in a way, and read lots of books and understand who I really am. And all of a sudden I felt like that lightness in me, that I'm pain-free and I'm guilt-free, and I don't want a relationship with him, and I don't wish him bad or have anything negative toward him. I just got to the point that he was just another person in my life, and that's that. I don't really crave anymore his love. I don't need him, and I forgave him. I don't wish him well, and I don't wish him anything. I just don't need him anymore.
Yes. So at that point, you are defining who you are as an individual, not based on whether your dad loves you, not based on how your I mean, obviously your relationship is repaired, but still you've gone, I am my own person. I'm doing it my way, with or without your help.
Yeah. And it's like we often talk about with Ben, because obviously of his tragedy of losing his dad in the hands of others, and the murder of his dad. And I really do not know how you live through something like this.
Well, no, I mean,
it's
a horrible,
it's a horrific, really experience for a young person too. And obviously his way of putting that pain and succeed in rugby, but
it's a similar story.
It's kind
the
of
way he focused on rugby is the same way you focused on dancing,
channeling pain into our sport and succeeding in that. But we often talk about the difference. He says very often, I miss my dad. I think about my dad. And I say to him, I said, I can't even say that I miss my dad.
Yeah.
I don't miss him. I don't need him.
Yeah.
He's not anyone in my life. I miss my friends.
Yes.
I miss a lot of other people, but I don't miss my dad, because he wasn't in my formative years. I don't have that.
You don't have that connection.
And I'm happy about it. And I said, you know what? I almost wish I had that. I almost wish I missed him.
Yeah.
But I don't. And I'm actually happy in a way about it, because I don't need to carry any more grief and the guilt and the pain. I let it go, and I let him go.
That's phenomenal, you know.
And I've closed that door. And when he sends me a text on my birthday, happy birthday, I just answer it to him like I would to any other friends who I know, but I don't need, or like ask me more about my life, or like, it's kind of there. And I'm happy that distance relationship kind of there,
Well, he did that. He cultivated that. He, if you're going to plant a seed, it's your job to look after it. And if you don't, and that seed grows in a different way, that's the way it goes. And as you referenced there with Ben, from talking to Ben myself, I know that his dad was a really important part of his life, and his dad loved him and he loved his dad. Your dad wasn't present. You don't have the same experience. And so that's where I say, listening to your life story so far, for anyone that didn't know this about you, just it's incredible the way you have developed around adversity and loss and tragedy and the changing state of the political status as well. Just everything that could have been difficult was difficult.
Oh, I could have made a lot of mistakes, and I could have completely went to the wrong side, and being like one of maybe my friends' girlfriends, just leaving there, being in relationship or married, and not having anything else in life, and some of those relationships are abusive, and it's really sad. But dancing is definitely was my savior, my happy place, and my kind of shining star to which I followed throughout really everything. And
what's interesting is that your journey from Seattle and the way that you were obviously developing the skill and developing your teaching skills as well as your actual physical dancing skills, what's been highlighted a lot more than that has been the relationships that you've had. And I don't really want to focus too much on the individuals within those relationships, but what I think happened later on with you having the celebrity. You go on to the biggest show on Saturday night on TV at the time, and everybody's watching. Everybody feels that they know you. And we start off with looking at quite a funny, your first dance. But I'm right, it was the first dance partner, which was the funny one. But even that was making the news. Your first, experience on this show was becoming national news.
I know, it was absolutely ridiculous. And So the dance career, kind of the professional, the competitive one, came to an end. And one of my dance teachers, I'm 29 at that time, saying, I'm casting a couple of new dancers for the Dancing with the Stars tour, which is obviously equivalent show to Strictly in the States, to which I was invited to do the first season. And I said no, because I was still competing and I was so oblivious to, again, you know, like I'm good at saying my no's to.
You are very good at saying no to big.
No, I don't want to be on TV. I want to be a United States champion. I'm now number 2. I want to work hard and be a champion. Why would I want to dance with some guy on TV? No. And then it blossomed. I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't do the right thing here. But thankfully, one of my teachers, he was choreographer on that Dancing with the Stars tour, and said, look, I know you've split up with your dance partner, you know, while you're in between thinking what do you do, just do the tour with me. It would be fun. You will see what it's all about. So, okay. So I go on winter tour. 2007, 2008, Dancing with the Stars, and basically kind of in that world of TV and celebrity, and it's fun. And I look at my fellow dancers who I knew from my competitive years, and I'm like, they like superstars. They're coming out of the hotels, people are taking photographs of them, and all this kind of thing. And that's like, I was like, wow, that's exciting. So I'm sitting in the back of that bus, tour bus, literally last week of the tour. I'm saying to the producers, who all of them actually from England, I'm saying, is there a chance I can maybe put my CV forward to other shows, because I know now that obviously it's spreading out around Europe as well. And I said, well, in fact, the UK one is looking for extra dancers. Just put your CV forward. They put me in touch. And myself and another guy from the tour brand Fortuna, we both flew into to London to do our screen test. And we did a full proper 40 minutes interview on TV. Then we had to teach a beginner, kind of like a runner. And it's funny, that guy is now a producer of It Takes Two, one of the producers, all these years later. And when I see him, we always laugh. I said, remember? He's like, oh my God, I was just starting my job as a runner. And here I am, had to be taught by you some ballroom dancing in cha-cha-cha. And we always laugh with him about it. It's like, oh my God. I said, I know, like how crazy life is. So they properly vetted us, me and my dance partner. I had to present all of the paperwork, what I won, what my qualifications were. I had letters from a big organizations, dance organizations supporting me, because they had to prove that they're hiring me and I'm really skillful and all that. I think it's a very different process now and Strictly with hiring new ballroom dancers. But that time it was very, very kind of big thing. And so I go back to the States, not thinking in a million years I'm going to get the job. That is February. And then by May, I get a call that I'm invited and I will be giving that one season, So I have to be in the UK 1st of August. And I'm disbelieved, because I was like, well, why me out of so many people trying? So me and Brian, we got the job. So we're going back, and I'm renting a little tiny studio here in London. And when I landed, I had just one friend from a competitive dance world. And he's saying to me, I'm certainly going to get Peter Andre. I'm certainly going to get Peter Andre. I was like, I have no clue who British celebrities are.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not here. I don't know anything, whatever. I don't know who Peter Andre is. Now I know.
Yeah.
Obviously, me and Ben, and we've been to quite a few kind of charity events with Peter and his lovely wife, Emily. But at that time, it was irrelevant to me. I'm like, who is Peter Andre, whatever. And I'm thinking it's going to be somebody, because I'm heart of this sort of dance competitive world, and this and that. I'm going to think, they're going to give me somebody really good so I can go and win the Strictly Come Dancing. And I walk into a dance little studio, and there is a sofa, and there is a John Sargent sitting on that sofa.
No disrespect to John, but that is
and
hilarious.
He's smiling away. He's like, oh, sorry, I took my shoes off because my feet were really swollen. I can't really stand up.
Wow, what an introduction.
I know, and I'm looking over the shoulder. It's almost like I thought I'm some kind of those shows where there's hidden
Jeremy
camera.
Beadle, yeah.
There is some kind of a tricked you kind of thing. I'm like, looking there, looking back, I'm like, okay, is that a joke, guys? But what was funny, that before I went into that room, one of the producers prepped me like, Kristina, we are so happy that this gentleman said finally yes to our show. He is a big kind of like BBC star, like very much loved by the public. We wanted him from day one on Strictly, and he always said no. And finally he said yes, and we are so delighted. And I was like, okay, there's gonna be like,
this is the big one.
Tall, dark and handsome, I don't know, footballer or whatever. And here's John Sargent. I'm like, okay. So he was like, and they all jumping around, the producers, they're like so happy. He said yes. And obviously I didn't know he's a big like, political broadcaster and BBC superstar and whatever. And I'm like, he can't even stand up. What the hell am I gonna do with him? So it was hilarious. And then I was like, okay, well, I've got to, roll up my sleeves and do something about it. But it was like we were like a very weird misfits, but very kind of funny sort of couple, because he was really lovely, like a proper English gentleman. We had a good laugh, we had a good fun. He took time to understand a little bit who I am, talked about my family and all this kind of things, and it was really, really special. And we just kind of got on in a weird way. And I remember teaching him that little first waltz, which we danced on Strictly. And obviously the audience went mad, and I didn't really know why, and then all this kind of, bad sort of things from the judges. Oh, you couldn't do this and that. But I remember like Bruce Forsyth, he was saying something like, you can see how much respect he had for John. And then the madness began. And then we're like last on the leaderboard, always voted in. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Your first season.
Yeah, my first season. And I can see that he is well respected, all the papers writing about him.
Know.
We like on front pages, and I'm like, what is all about? and then I remember one thing that the producer said to me. They're like be mindful of British press. If they want to dig something up on you, they will, and they have no boundaries, and they have no,
they don't
kind
care.
of like, they don't care, basically, like, just And what was really weird, that there was no media training, if you wish,
is
at all.
Yeah, that is odd.
No media training, no nothing. You just kind of thrown into that limelight. I don't know anything about it. I was a competitor all my life.
Yeah.
Like trying very hard to make something out of me. And I never thought for a million years I'm going to be judged by my personal choices, by my family background, by my relationships. Why my relationship matter? They shouldn't define who I am.
None of your business, basically.
Right. All of us have relationships, broken and good ones. And you dig into anybody's past, you're going to find something weird and unpleasant. And
we're not going to like everything about each other.
But why does that matter? To me, like as a competitor, it was always what I am on that dance floor, my skill, my teaching skills, my performance skills. That's what matter, because I am a dancer.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, I'm exposed to like millions of people, and people want to know my background and my relationships, and I'm like, why does that matter? Like I couldn't understand. And so it becomes such a big sort of catch-22, because I'm on all this like talk shows with John. He was like, I'm gonna take you everywhere with me, doing all the talk shows with me, doing all the press with me, and all the other kind of dancers, like on Strictly. Slightly jealous that I'm getting all this exposure, but yet I'm getting crazy amount of like digging through my past and who I am and what I've done, and going to my family in Seattle, going to like relationships and so on, and reaching to my dad, and my mom, and I'm like, what is going on? Like,
it's so disgusting, actually,
and it's so intrusive, and it's so like. And also, I understood that there isn't no one really interested to write something positive.
No,
it
bad news sells.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure it out. Why who benefits from that? Why would you write something negative about me that we remember the news of the world?
Oh, I mean, honestly.
So they did a number, obviously. They went to everyone and anyone who could speak and offering money and buying photographs of me. And you just think why? What is the reason here? I couldn't figure it out.
It's
and I
abusive.
Couldn't understand.
It's abusive because what they're doing is they're digging up private things about you, which they don't understand your traumas. They don't understand what you've had to survive. They're digging up private things. They're trying to find something that they can put out which makes you a villain. They want you to be a villain because that sells papers here, because the narrative in this country in the press is always been so bad. It's always been so salacious and so awful,
and then just basically become that sort of they're creating their own sort of perspective of me and that personality, which I'm not really that, but they're creating that Siberian siren, and they're creating that sort of the villain that they all love to hate. And I have all of a sudden all this negativity, and I'm like, why? You don't know who I am. You don't know what I went through. You don't know the pain. You don't know what I literally crawled out of with every single kind of
it's
in
bullying
me. It is
bullying.
It's an emotional bullying by press and by others, and we're coming into the world of social media, the Twitter, the Facebook of the world, and you think, oh my God, sometimes you read the comments and you're like, why? I couldn't figure it out. Why so much hate? So much negativity.
And you know what? Obviously the John Sargent thing was a big story because he pulled out in the end because he thought it was fairer to do that.
And we had a press conference.
I remember.
It's crazy.
I remember.
It was resigned.
It was massive news. I mean, you can't, unless you were there, you don't know. It was proper news. It wasn't just, a little bit of rumour on Instagram or whatever. It was full on press conference, big news. I mean, it was mental, but it was also it made him more, I think people fell in love with him more because he saw the fairness of it all. It was fabulous. But then the time goes on and relationships happen in the dance world, and you're obviously all dancing closely together, and chemicals flowing and all that sort of stuff. But obviously I know you and Ben, and I know you more now than then when you first met, and it pains me a little bit because knowing you both as human beings, not as the celebrities that were on the telly, when I ever see comments or anything made about you, there's a little bit of me that just wants to scream loud, why are you doing this? You don't know them. People that say horrible things about the way someone behaves or the way someone looks or whatever it is that they want to pick on, I question it, because I think in the work that I do, I'm always looking at the mind and the brain rather than the person, because the brain is programmed on that automatic. Everything is, we say the subconscious system is 95% and 5% of what we think is conscious. And I think so many people are in that automatic response. And although they have to think through the steps, so they read something and then they go to the Instagram or to the social media or to the Daily Mail to post a comment, that is a conscious process. But I think what's deeply unconscious is the hatred towards themselves. The fact that they don't have the fame, the fact that they don't have the handsome man, or the beautiful woman on their arm, the fact that they don't have a relationship where anyone cares enough to comment. And I think if you are deeply insecure and you feel like you have no worth in this world, the only way you feel you can be seen is through negative behaviour. And it goes back to the nursery or kindergarten, where the little boy or the little girl that's not seen and heard at home, they go into nursery or school and they hit someone, and suddenly they're getting attention. They're getting the attention because they're being seen. And I think a lot of the social media bullying and the press bullying is about being seen and selling papers and clickbait. It's not actually about truth, and it's not actually about balanced perspective. I want to be seen, so I'm going to be salacious and horrid, and I want to comment, and I want someone to see me and notice me, because that's the only way I have any validation in this world at all. Yeah. And so in that respect, it's not about you. And I can say wholeheartedly, if you meet Kristina in person and you know Kristina, you'll know she's warm. You do smile. You are kind. And, you know, there's nothing about you that makes me think, oh, I don't like this person, or I don't trust this person. And I couldn't care less what your relationship history is. Why is that of any relevance to how you treat me?
I don't really know. It's just fascinating that all the relationships that happen on Strictly or post Strictly is such a big interest for others. I couldn't get it. Why? No. Why me? I mean, what's so interesting about me as far as like just my personal life? I was there always and raised that you know, it's about your skill. It's about your who you are. Obviously, on the dance floor, my skill as a teacher.
Yes.
And I think I proved on Strictly for 8 years that I am a skillful teacher and choreographer, and I can get the best out of my partners, and all this kind of things. And obviously in professional world as well. And I couldn't understand why there is such an interest, a judgment toward my personal life.
Yes.
Why do you care? Like, why? Like, what is it that is? I understand lots of press obviously wrote, and we were like splashed around the front pages with Ben. But again, it goes to the fact that, you know, I didn't know what was happening in his previous life to what all I knew, the relationship was failed and not, you know, existed of anymore. And when we started the relationship, it was our relationship. I just going back thinking about, well, it's happening in life pretty much every single day, you know, left, right, and center. Yeah. You have somebody divorcing, somebody having the second marriage, a second relationship. We're now 8 years in relationships, having 7-year-old daughter. The amount of people said that I'm doing it for press or for the, you know, or we're going to fail, or we're going to like, well, thank you very much. Everybody's still here, still in relationship, engaged with a daughter. And why do you care? Like, why?
And running a business as well. Like what people don't know is that, you know, as you say, relationships finish all the time. They fail. It could be 30 years. It could be 2 years. It doesn't work out and whatever. Obviously, because you were on the show together, what people have done is they've said, well, you were on the show, therefore it's your fault their relationship ended. Now, nobody knows what goes on behind closed doors, and that's not for me to delve into, especially publicly, because that's nobody's business. But what I do know is that in especially as a psychotherapist, it comes up all the time. People are in relationships where they're not happy, where they're staying together for the kids or because they've got a mortgage. They're not staying together through love. For whatever reason, that relationship, which none of us have any right to know about, was over. And then because of the public nature of how you and Ben meet, everyone then makes you the villain.
Yeah.
And that like you say, the Siberian siren, that narrative had been run anyway. You know, I said to you earlier, if you're sexy, if you're passionate, if you are a woman that's attractive and that men look at in a particular way, other women don't like it. Not all women, but some women do not like beautiful women. They don't feel comfortable in themselves. So if there's a beautiful woman that's sexy and all the men are looking at them, you know, look at Pamela Anderson, all these other sort of beautiful women over the years, Beyonce. Although it's interesting because Beyonce seems to have more of a female following. I think there's something about the relationship between the female and her dance partner, and the closeness, the intimacy of that, and how that triggers something in people that aren't secure in themselves. So the narrative is running. You know, there's jealousy involved here. And like you say, you and Ben have been together for a really long time. You've got Miller, and you've got your home, and you've got the dog, and obviously Ben's got the other children that are now 16. You have a business, and there's a whole life. This was never just about the press, and that suits people's narratives because they don't want to be wrong. Nobody wants to be wrong. So even if an article goes out now And people are commenting in a horrible way now. It's because they don't want to admit they were wrong.
I know.
It's because they don't want to admit they were wrong.
It's just fascinating how 8 years later they're still so much bothered by me in band. And
it's
you're
crazy.
Like, don't you have your own life to take care of? Don't
yes.
you like your children to take care of? Why do you... It's always fascinating to me, you know, let's say there is a Daily Mail article and there is like comments at the bottom. I always wonder of what kind of those people who subscribe and make an account there under fake name, obviously.
Yes.
And sit there day in and day out writing those negative remarks about pretty much everybody.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it's like, wow, I feel sad
cruel.
for those people. I really actually, whereas before bothered me and it was really affecting me. It was really emotionally so difficult. Was on the verge of quitting the show. I was on the verge of quitting everything. Now, all these years later, and I think throughout my work at Wellbeing Center and becoming obviously certified senior yoga teacher now, and finding way to love me the way I am, I now have nothing but a bit of sadness for those
yes.
people and a bit of compassion.
Yes.
That
key.
actually, if you are, you must be in a much worse place that I am.
1,000,000,000,000%.
To sit there and write something really horrible, negative about me. I feel sad for you. I wish you all the best. And I wish you find some happiness in life. That writing a negative thing without somebody isn't a highlight of your day. But maybe something else will come around.
You're right. And wow, I mean, for you to feel that way about, and people have been cruel, they've been horrible, and it is as bad as, if not, well, it's worse than playground bullying. Yeah. Because they know what they're doing. But you're right, that I think if you can turn emotional pain into curiosity and compassion, so be curious about the action, because it is about them, it's not about you. You can't help the way you look. You can't help that you are, you know, a woman who has had these opportunities because of how hard you've worked. You can't help that is something that you work towards, you were awarded as a result of hard work. And that as a result of that, you've met the people that you've met and you've had the experience. That's up to them. If they don't understand that is not a reflection of you. Curiosity and compassion are key. However, I've got to say, there's a couple of comments I've read about you in particular from some of those Daily Mail articles. And my amygdala is triggered because although I am compassionate and curious, there's still a human element of all of us. And I just don't get it. However, you are very humble, and I think your work at So Yoga, and as you say there, you know, you've been dancing there, you've been doing the yoga classes there, but you are now a yoga teacher with this whole new business. Talk to me about that, because the way that you have crafted your life, don't forget, people, that this business was started just before COVID.
Yeah.
And, you know, the facility that you have there is expensive.
Yeah.
So the government closed us all down.
Yeah.
Well, the world's government, the government number one, I call them. They're controversial, but they closed the world down. You've just started a business. I know the bills and the what you have to pay there is astronomical. It's astronomical here.
Yeah.
But your facility is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you put all this work, all these times. I mean, Ben was showing me around once and he said, you know, I did this myself. And all this.
Yeah, he built it with his own bare hands.
With his hands, exactly. So all this love and time and effort has gone into this business. It's shut down. All of a sudden, what the hell are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, you have grafted, and that's why I talked about you being the busiest woman ever. You have grafted, you have basically blood, sweat, tears.
Yeah.
And you've continued and you've made it work. And it's been really, really hard. I mean, I won't talk about personal stuff, but I know the last couple of years have been incredibly hard for you. But here you are launching this yoga teaching.
Yeah.
Incredible. Tell me about this.
I think, first of all, I always had a little bit of that thing for teaching others, because I've been a dance teacher since like I was nearly 16. So I kind of love giving what I love, the knowledge of that, whether it's dancing or yoga, to others, and hopefully getting them on that new path, whether it's dance, yoga, or anything like that. So when I went right after I had Mila in 2016, I signed up pretty much right away on a teaching course, because I actually been practicing yoga for 20 years since I moved to the States.
Wow.
So my dance partner took me to that very tiny, smelly, hot yoga studio in Seattle, which I hated first time I went there, but my body just got so I love that feeling, being in that yoga studio, sweating and feeling like I can really expand my body. And throughout my competitive career, that was something we did 4 or 5 times a week, conditioned my body, conditioned my mind, was just giving me that amazing kind of fitness and also mindset as well for competitive kind of world. And I loved yoga, and I always somehow felt that I will actually get into it more on professional level. I always kind of had that thing in my back of my mind. The first thing I've done when I moved to London, I actually found a yoga studio it's in the Bolsover Street, right by the tower, BT Tower, and it used to be Bikram Yoga. Now it's, I think, a different brand, but it's hot yoga studio. I went right away. It was just there, and I loved how yoga made me feel emotionally, physically, mentally. So it was always in my life, and I think it's also prevented me from injuries in dance world, because a lot of professional dancers, and on Strictly especially, end up with severe injuries, and touch wood, I kind of thankfully escaped that. And I think it is due to yoga, due to that constant movement and breath work you do during yoga and all that, and mental as well. Clarity it gives you too. So when I moved to Northampton and I wanted to get back to some kind of exercise, yoga was obvious choice, because I knew I wouldn't go to a fitness class or anything like that. So I've googled kind of places in Northampton, didn't find what I wanted, because I wanted authentic hot yoga. So I went to Milton Keynes, and they had those posters everywhere that they're gonna offer the teacher training. So I signed up and said, go for it. Time is now. Little one is very little. We can look after, Mila while you're there on, it was throughout several months on weekends. So I did the teacher training, and at the beginning of it, I didn't want to have my own facilities. I went there just with I just wanted to deepen my yoga practice, become a yoga teacher, just maybe teach. I don't know. It wasn't yet kind of that clarity in my head. But it's such a transformative journey to be on that yoga teacher training, because many people would think that yoga is just a physical exercise. We know came from India, in some kind of in vague form, we know what yoga is. But yoga, in the essence of it, is a philosophy of living.
Yes.
And the exercise, or doing asanas, the yoga poses, is just one branch of it. So there's 8 branches, or 8 limbs of yoga, as we call it, like a big tree with 8 limbs. And the first one, yamas and niyamas, it's the moral conduct to yourself and moral conduct to the outside world. It's those kind of principles of living. And a lot of it being that yogic lifestyle, understanding you and being good to yourself and loving yourself first, not in a selfish kind of way, like a lot of us thinking that self-love, but in a understanding that if you don't nurture that love for yourself inside, you can't give it either.
Absolutely.
You can't give it to others. You can't be a good person in your family, society. If you don't love you, your love for the others will be always conditional on some ways.
Yes.
But if you love yourself personally, then you understand how to give it to others unconditionally, and just because of who they are, because you accept it yourself, which is the hardest thing for ourselves to do.
Yes.
Then you start accepting others for who they are. And I think this is why my perception of those negative comments changed, because I just understand now that who they are, maybe they don't love, and that's why they have to be horrible and negative to others.
Yes.
And it makes me sad for them, but I know who I am, and I love who I am. And a concept of even saying that out loud now is, many years ago, I would never even be able to say that I love myself, because it would maybe sound like a very selfish things to say, or wrong, or something, again, negative. Now it's a different world, because through studying yoga, you understand that it's a whole different thing and a whole different world and a different concept to what we think about it. and I had to love myself, to just who I am, embrace everything I went through, and embrace that, because that made me who I am now. And without all the struggles, they're meant to be, this is my life. Maybe it's my karma from the previous lives, and that's what it's given to me, to go through that pain and all of that, to get to me here and do what I want. And I think you can only be a teacher, especially a yoga teacher, and they give that knowledge to others, to other people to become yoga teachers, if you truly get that concept and you embrace yourself.
Absolutely, yes. You have to have the lived experience, otherwise it's not authentic, because authenticity is key.
A key. Absolutely, 100%. And so with that journey of self-discovery, through yoga, I obviously, at the end of it, I said to Ben, I think I want to have my own studio. It never was before in my head. And he said, okay, well, let's put our thoughts together. And we created So Yoga as a place where he can do some fitness classes. I can do my yoga and dance, and something to give to the families in Northampton. Same, affordable, and,
Yes.
with childcare, like our crash. And so moms can come and do that, because I was that mom. What do? You have to organize the childcare to go to the class in the morning. So this is why, like, crash in So Yoga was like non-negotiable. I said, like, that had to be there, has to be there for my clients, for my new moms and stuff. So we kind of created that concept. We put all of our savings, everything through hard years of 8 years on Strictly and Ben, whatever he had, to put into that project. And we opened, obviously, in 2019. We got the premises in February, and we opened the facilities. And then 9 months later, the world came to a full stop.
Yes.
And you're like, what am I doing now? I've lost all of my savings. I've lost all of the money. I have nothing to live on. All of the jobs as self-employed gone away, because obviously we self-employed. We go do talks or performances or teaching. You get the money because it's not a steady paycheck. We don't do 9 to 5 works. Both of us, not even one of us.
Yeah.
So we also directors of a new company. We never, ever, ever even once took any dividends, but we're falling into that exempt hole, where we're not allowed any bounce backs or whatever, any help from government, because we're directors of a new company. But we never, ever, ever once took even a penny yet, because we're a new company. So we excluded in any kind of government help, shape or form. So I'm starting Zoom classes online. I do dance classes online. Ben carrying on with some fitness classes for the members we've got. But again, we knew business, we don't exactly have a following. We some people stayed with us, which was great. And it was just absolutely horrific time, And meanwhile, the bills are piling, because, the landlords and all the rest of it, they still want the money. And we're like, we are not allowed to work. We are not allowed to trade by the government. How can we pay?
Yeah.
It is absolutely a mess of a situation. And I know we're not the only ones. But for all of the family-owned businesses, it was a literal a nightmare, and it killed so many businesses. And my heart breaks, because I know a lot of my friends who had catering businesses and maybe also yoga studios, and they just had to close. They couldn't make it work. Yeah. They could not make it work, and it's such a shame, because they put all their life savings, skills, time, effort, everything toward these little businesses, and they just. They didn't
survive it. And it was scary. I mean, I had to shut down here, the clinic, and we didn't know what was going to happen. So when I realised that all those years worth of hard work could just be taken away from me and I might not survive it, I was petrified. Yeah. It felt like a grief. It felt like a loss. It wasn't just, my business is shut down. Luckily we survived it, but I remember the moment thinking, all those years have just gone. It was the scariest, horriblest thing. And for those of us that survived it, and a bit like you, I work 12, 13 hours a day. Yeah. And I'm still doing that to make sure that I can, like I own the building here. So if the roof goes, I've got to pay. That roof has cost me thousands and thousands of pounds. If the windows need replacing, I've got to pay. If the back of the house needs reconstructing, I've got to pay. If the toilets need doing, I've got to, people think, oh, you must make loads of money because people rent rooms and whatever. It all goes back out on the building.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's not even covering probably electricity.
Exactly. It's so expensive.
Yeah, and I really my hat off to every single family and like small business owner like yourself, like me, because nobody really knows the real struggles. It all looks beautiful and glamorous outside, and you think, oh, you own the business. You have no clue
idea
how difficult it is. And we're not yet out of that black hole, and we're trying very, very hard to make it work. But what happened in the kind of, obviously, when we opened post-lockdown, and mind you, we were last to open because we are a class-based place.
Exactly.
So we weren't allowed to do classes, which was it was kind of like a scam, really, because like you can go and do yourself a workout in a fitness center with 30 people around you, but you can't have 8 people in the class.
It was insane.
And I was like, how is that possible? They are sweating next to each other. They can transmit whatever. And I have all the things in place, and I can't even have 8 people in the class.
I know.
2 meters
mental.
apart. Like, please explain to me where the science behind it. So we were last to open. We were at the third, grid of businesses to open. So we lost everything we possibly could. And people were very careful with the money because they didn't know again what was going to be happening, so we've lost obviously lots of members. And even though and you know what, this slowly, when it started picking up and you think, okay, maybe I'll make it work, then the whole crisis with electricity happened when it went down by
prices go up
1,000%, and you think, you must be kidding me. Like, where is the government helping us here? Because we're just trying to make it work here somehow to pay the debt, somehow to, crawl out of it. And then we have to like triple payments for electricity. Where am I going to find that money? Like, that is insane. It's absolutely insane.
And your facility, to give, for those that don't know, because there'll be people that aren't in Northampton that have never been there, it is huge.
It's huge.
So whatever was already expensive to run, like, you've now gone up again and again and again to the point where it's astronomical. And for a small business, which essentially, although the facility is large, it's a small business that hasn't had any assistance from the government in the way other businesses did. You're starting to crawl out of it, and all of a sudden, bam, more problems. And yes, there isn't a business plan which allows you to account for world pandemic, and for electricity. And the good old sort of our insurance just said, no, we're not going to pay you anything. So you're
even
screwed.
Though we had clause about infectious diseases spreading out. Nope, take us to court.
See, the insurance companies have got a lot to answer for as well.
Take us to court. That's what they said. Well, how am I going to take them to court? I have no money, no financial support to do so.
It's so corrupt. And what people don't see is, like you said that a few minutes ago, you and Ben had put your life savings into this. It wasn't like, oh, this is a lovely idea. We'll start it and see what happens. All of the money you had made, your whole life's work. Ben had been a world champion rugby player. You had been a world champion dancer on the telly. And all of those years, 2 decades,
and
more.
All of those are just gone. And obviously, if I had a crystal ball and I could see in the future, I wouldn't take such large facilities. Maybe it was a little bit too ambitious,
But you can only say that with hindsight. You didn't know what was going to happen.
You wouldn't know. And I think as well, you want to trust your instinct. You want to create something special. And, and I think we did, people who coming to us really love what we offer. And we go over and beyond for what we're offering, and stuff like that to our members for a very reasonable price, for compared to even others here in Northampton, never mind London. I remember Sinita, who I know quite well, and she was on tour here in Northampton, in Chicago. And because obviously we're all in Darrengate, literally 5 minutes walk to these facilities, she was there a whole week. She literally was in so yoga day in and day out with her little dog, and we looked after the dog as well. And she went to all these classes, to my anti-gravity yoga and the wheel yoga and this and that. And she's like, Kristina, if that was open one in London, please, I'm gonna go and bring all my friends. And she's like, if that was in London, it would be absolutely packed to the maximum. I said, well, I know a lot of people were saying why we're not in London, but we live in here, so
this is where you started.
This is the thing. So, but no, it is a very top level facilities and what we offer. And obviously Sunita said, look, I've been to a lot of places. This is a top notch.
It is top notch.
And well done on that. But it's hard to make it kind of work here. And so coming out of the pandemic, when we started again, I just kind of start thinking about myself, about the fact that, I have a lot of knowledge about different kind of a type of, basically type of yoga, and then just business now as well. Because what I think I can really teach more than anything is how to set up a business in that space. Yeah. And not just what to do, but the main thing, what not to do.
Yes.
Because I had to go through the worst period, and I know pros and cons. And one of my modules basically in that sort of the yoga teacher training I'm doing now is that the whole weekend on business, because nobody was really teaching that to me.
No,
I mean,
you're right.
It was kind of there. I'm not going to take it away. When I was going through my teacher training, there was a business module and business clinic, but now when the world went through what it went and evolved a little bit, and the business involved, and the clients behavior changed a lot, and it's changing all the time. And you've got to foresee those changes, and you have to keep your hands on the pulse of things. I can definitely say that I can offer that probably better than anyone else,
But also the mindset, you're let's face it, I'm running some courses next year myself as a training therapists and coaches, and the same goes where
I will be signing up.
Yes, well, you'll be brilliant. It would be a real good add-on for you, because it's all the trauma focused stuff, and it allows people to work with trauma in a slightly different way, regardless of what kind of coach you are. But a bit like what you said there, no one taught me how to do business. I've had to learn through all the mistakes, all the highs, all the lows, and understanding the way the world's moved forward since COVID and all of that, putting all of that into the 6 months that follow for those that want to do it. So you don't have to do the 6 months follow, but there'll be a 6-month intensive how to build your business and how to understand the numbers.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I've failed at and still is not brilliant at, but I understand the systems now, is numbers.
Numbers game.
We've spoken about that a lot with the COVID situation and the government and all of that. If you don't understand your numbers, you will end up with far more stress than you need to carry.
100%. And you wouldn't know that unless you're a business owner, that even your cleaning, will take £1,000 before you even switch the lights on.
Correct.
So are you putting that in your business plan? Because you don't think about things that. The marketing, obviously all the kind of social media, what we have to do now, because everything is through that.
Well, even this, what I'm doing here with you today and what you're kindly doing with me, it's part of what we do in business now. You have to be out there and you have to show people that you're different. And you have to show people how you're different. You can't just expect people to find you.
It's a whole different world, and I wish I was a mentorship there for because for dance or yoga studios, it is very special niche business. It's not like every other business at all. We're dealing with completely different clientele, like I said, people behavior and psychology of what's important now. What's really sad for me is that people put their health and well-being last on the list of priorities, what to spend money on. That was really apparent after the pandemic. It was like, I'm going to cancel my membership because I can't afford it. But I'm pretty sure that if you count the numbers, if you go out for food and drink on Friday night, that would be, because if you spread a membership, what we offer, it's £50 a day.
That's not even a coffee a day.
It's not even a coffee.
People don't think twice about going to McDonald's, Costa, Starbucks,
exactly,
wherever else
is
they
your
go.
health worth more than 150 a day?
Mine is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but people don't think like that.
No, they don't.
They just think, okay, £50 a month, it is a lot. I don't want to pay it.
Yeah.
But is it really that much to go to a couple of classes, yoga classes, and get to meditation classes and get to fitness class?
I've got to tell you this, and you won't know this because, you know, I've never told you, but I've got clients that come here that have used your facilities and go to your facilities. They love it. You know, the meditation, the sound, you do all the sound stuff. And I often share your stuff on my stories because I know the people that follow me, they need to know about those things. It's not just about the talk therapies and the trauma focus therapies. That's a really important step. But sound healing, you know, the anti-gravity stuff that you do, the yoga classes, the dance classes that you still in that facility, it's like everything you need. You've got beauty, you've got it all, haven't you? Everything you need for feeling good is in that facility. That's basically it. Everything you need for feeling good for £50 a month.
I know. And the thing is as well, for people, it's so important to have that even an hour a week just for themselves, doing something. Like, I'm sure if they come to you, they already made a step on a sort of a journey of doing something for themselves, and that goes further into actually making that step, going to that meditation class or yoga class, doing something for the fitness and mental well-being. And it's so important. And it's really hard when I get those emails, oh, you know, I don't have that money to spend, and I'm really sad because I don't want to say that. Think about it, it's less than a cup of coffee a day.
I know.
For this, is that really, can you not really afford it, you know, or can you maybe rethink what you're spending money on?
Absolutely.
And it's often, I start living my life a bit like that recently because you know, I went to Thailand in this August, and obviously my love for everything philosophical and like Buddhism, and we went to seeing like this famous Buddha temples, and the guide was a Buddhist, the lady, and she said to us, we were like on that sort of boats, you know, through the Bangkok, and seeing like a Buddhist temple and ashram there as well. And she said, in our culture, money is not the main focus. It's about living life, being happy, smiling at each other, promoting that well-being. And it's just in a culture, really. And I thought to myself, and I looked at her, I said, what a wonderful way, really, to think about it. I know wealth has to go around, like you said, as everything had to be paid for. But maybe if we promote, even as a government, you know, some kind of thing, like societies, that mental health and physical health is should be a priority. It should be some kind of allocated money, maybe from workplaces to, you know, we had all this like eat out to help out. But why that not there? You know, here's the money for one class pass a month for meditation,
because they don't want us to, I mean, you know, I've got to be careful what I say here, but they don't want us to be well. They don't want us to be like, well.
Why there is no such a thing when you don't give like, I mean, £10 a month even for meditation class for people that can come and do it for free and see if they like it and do it.
It makes too much sense. What you're saying is very logical, and you know, I'm quite happy to say that the money in this world is pumped through pharmaceuticals, and the governments are highly attached to that, as well as the media. So we know that, I call it government number one, which is the pharmaceuticals, the media, oil, those kind of things. And really we see ourselves as separate in that way. But, you know, we're all following a very similar regime, essentially. Some are more, depending on where you live in the world, we are definitely lucky here, comparatively, if you look at what's going on now. However, the reason that they want to give it to food is because the food that they were promoting wasn't particularly good food either. It wasn't like avocados and, you know, it was the sort of food that could lead to health issues. And those health issues lead to pharmaceuticals being needed, which leads to a lot of money. So it makes perfect sense. And the reason I say that is because it could sound like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not. I work in this field. You work in this field. if people care about, and I say people, if the overall governments care about health, they would do that, Kristina.
Yeah.
They would do that, and they're not. And it makes perfect sense that they should, and they're not. And that's why it's really essential that we have these conversations, because it's where people can make up their own mind.
Yeah,
make up their own
exactly.
mind with all the information laid out on the table. If you want to, make up your own mind. Money is important for several different reasons, but if you are not in a healthy state, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, you're not going to be able to enjoy it anyway.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think, sometimes I'm obviously on a lot of like social media accounts and websites and all this like about Buddha quotes and Buddhism and the life philosophy of like yoga and Buddhism, Hinduism. And it's exactly that. You can't take money into your grave.
No.
You can't take anything. And by the time you probably, at the end of your life, you want to look back and think that you lived a good, healthy life, happy life, made lots of happy memories with your children. And this is like, we had a conversation yesterday with Ben. I said, let's go somewhere away with the kids for like after Christmas, just experience and stuff like that. And we like, of course, we're looking at some destinations, and money is, it's always tight for we 5 of us traveling. It's a lot, it's a lot, obviously, always. And we always take holidays always together, all 5 of us, 3 kids and me and Ben. But then I said, what are we saving money for? What are we saving for? We don't know what maybe we're going to be locked down again in a month or so.
It's so true.
We just don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know what's going on.
So be present, live now.
Live now. I truly believe in that now, because like you just do not know. And all this, like, you think about, I'll do that tomorrow for myself. No, I'll do it now for myself. If I can, I would do it now.
Yeah.
If like I wanted to do some kind of course for myself, I'm thinking, maybe in the future. No, I'll do it now, because I want to know now. I want to develop now. I want to be the best that I can be now. And I had that conversation with 14 people, signing them up for my yoga teacher training, because they do the discovery call. And a lot of them are yoga members, actually, already, so yoga members. And I had quite a few other people. And it's not like I had to convince them or sell something. It wasn't that, because I actually wasn't aggressive at all. I think I sort of put it out there for that yoga teacher training. And I thought, even if it's 2 people sign up, I'm still going to do it. I know I'm not going to make any money, and I'm going to basically give my time pretty much for free, if that's going to be that. But I'm going to do it because I just want to do it. And all of a sudden, it was more and more and more and more. So now I have 14 trainees, which is amazing. And it's lovely to have for the very first training kind of thing, And they all obviously have different backgrounds and different ages, from 26 to 60, which is amazing. Like a really wonderful range and group of people. Always different stories. And all I got to say to them, I said, do you feel that you really have that calling inside, that you want to do it? And I know you always think, maybe I'll do it next year. I said, believe me, if you have that feel now and you feel like you really want to do it now. You don't know. Next year is going to be something else. I can't do this weekend. I have that, or maybe next, or maybe this. I said, do it now if you feel like this is what you ought to do for yourself, because that's how I was. I was a new mom, but baby was 3 months old, and I thought, maybe next year when Mila a bit older. And then I'm so glad that I've done when I did that. Yeah. And Ben was on board, because it was actually the best time, to do it. Yes. So, and the same, like now talking, we're 5 weeks into training 5, so we're kind of mid of that course, and 10, so it's 10 weeks course, and all of my students, kind of teachers now, saying, you were right, Kristina, it's like the time was now, like I feel that, like it's actually was right time, right way, and yes, it's overwhelming, yes, it's also, trust the process, because I was in exactly the same position. But the first meeting we had, it was almost like a therapy group, because they said, I'll tell you my story, why I started my yoga journey as a teacher, not just as a practitioner. And I had that manifest board, which I did for my teacher training, with a picture of me back in Russia as a little girl with my mom, picture of me on Strictly, And I went through all these points in that manifest board, and I said to everyone, pointing at the picture of me on Strictly, I said, here I look my best and feeling my worst. And that's why I'm here today, because that, looking back, I was in such a state, emotional state, where I felt that like no one really cares who I really am. Nobody understands who I really am. It's about how I look, whether I look good on TV. And even then I get trolled that I'm fat and all that and ugly and all sorts. And I said I needed to close that door and step away consciously. Now everybody, you kind of like, no. It was funny because I had from my publicist that little email a couple of weeks ago from a magazine. I still work with some magazines, but I kind of consciously moved away toward holistic ones and all that from the Daily Mail of the world, because they always want to talk about the past, and I'm sick of it. I don't live in my past.
No.
I live in my now and my future. So. And I don't want to talk about the relationships or anything.
No.
There is much more to me,
so much more
than be that girl on Strictly, basically. And so it was an email from a magazine saying, looking for famous people, basically talk about well-being and fitness or whatever. And she wanted to put me forward. Said, well, yeah, I'm happy to do it. No problem. They came back saying, oh, but she's not famous anymore. We want somebody with bigger profile. So kind of that. And my publisher was so crossed. And I said to her, look, that is absolutely fine. Because if I'm not famous anymore to talk about well-being, something I actually know very well. I'm a senior yoga teacher with an award-winning studio here in Northamptonshire, trained in like 10 different styles of yoga, different other things, world-renowned educator and dance teacher and dancer in the dance world. If I'm not famous enough to talk about well-being for the magazine, it is absolutely fine.
And do you really want to be associated with a magazine that prioritizes fame over really good quality information?
It made me laugh, and I said, look, there is plenty of other magazines I can do. I write for Om Magazine, Yoga, Destiny, Spirituality and Destiny, and all the other things who will not care who I am from that famous world. I've made a conscious choice to close that door because what it was doing to me mentally and emotionally and physically too.
Of course, because it's all linked.
Of course it is. So I just said, you know what, I actually made the right choice, pulling away from the tabloids and those supplement magazines and newspapers. That isn't my audience.
No, it's not.
It isn't my people.
No, it's
I
not.
need to speak to. They don't need to know about me and my well-being. I can actually help and give a very insightful information and lifestyle journey.
Absolutely.
But if that's not for them,
they're not for you. They're not for you.
They're not for me.
Yeah, that's the truth. And the thing is, your emotional intelligence and your heart and mind coherence and the way you are with people, you are so lovely. Nobody outside of that kind of energy needs to be in your space. And one thing I kind of wanted to mention as we close this, because I think it's really important. You said something earlier about karma. You said something earlier about maybe it was the karma of my lives before or whatever, and here I am now. And then I remembered I must mention this because I was thinking at the time, you're a cycle breaker. That's what you're here to do. You're a cycle breaker. And then I look at your absolutely beautiful little girl who is gorgeous, not only to look at, but the way she moves, which we will mention, but she's so lovely. She's such a lovely little bundle of energy. She's so sweet. But she can dance. Like, she has the genes, but she also has the best teacher in the world. So I see the little clips of her on your social media, Milla, and I just think, wow. And her spice and her attitude and her face and the way she just has that confidence. you've broken the cycle, but you've also been able to gift her this genetic predisposition or this passion or whatever it is. And it's beautiful. Like what you're offering with the yoga teacher training will be paid forward again and again and again and again. That's the legacy. That's the energy that you're giving is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? And then this work that you do with your own daughter and the effort and the energy and the time that you put into her, it is really changing the energy, and it really is changing the cycles. And I think one of the things that when we look at fame and we see that 3D image of someone and we think we know them, it doesn't ever give credit to all of that other stuff, your traumas, but the way that you've changed the cycles, you've worked so hard. Who cares about relationships and who you've been with and who you haven't? It's irrelevant. The energy that you have cultivated in your life, that you pay forward, that because you're now teaching and have taught dance obviously for years, but particularly with the yoga, will be paid forward again and again and again. There's no end to that. That energy is just constantly redistributed, and that will live on forever, infinitely. And that's what you leave when you leave this planet. You leave the intentions, the energy and the love. And I think one of the reasons that I was so excited when you said you would come on is that I know that that's what you're about, and that's what I want to put into the world. And having people like you here telling your life's journey and whatever people think of you, I hope that by listening to this, and then also by watching that journey with Mila, getting to watch it and see her grow into whatever she grows into, I hope that people get to see the real you, because there's so much more to you, like you said at the beginning.
Than the relationships are judged by. Thank you for inviting. And I mean, it was lovely to actually speak with you about my life without sort of worrying about what kind of questions will be thrown at me, although it was very honest. The reason why, like I said, I made a conscious decision to step out of the limelight and not being famous anymore. Like the magazine kindly pointed.
Wow.
Is that because I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted to be present for my child. And yes, I work a lot, and unfortunately I'm not always as much as I want to be around Mila. But because she's in my dance school, obviously she is seeing me a lot, maybe in the other light, like a dance teacher. And although it's a little bit of a difficult dynamic to be a dance teacher or any teacher to your own child, she, I hope, will kind of inherit my drive for being the best, at what best as you can be, work really hard. I think she now understands that the little trophies and the medals don't come easy. You have to put effort to it. She understands that. She's now start asking me, Mom, would you do a private lesson with me, which never had before.
Wow.
That she understands that she needs to work a little bit more to really perform well. She knows she's privileged in some things because I have an ability to take her to a lot of dance competitions.
Yes.
And put her in through training with top people in the world.
Yes.
Because I'm very, very generous, if you wish, with all of my dance students. I invite best of the best throughout the country to come and teach. And obviously Mila has access to that, too, as all of my other students. And, I just want to be for her a good role model. And so she sees that, that discipline I inherited through my dance training.
Yes.
Hopefully for her without trauma I had.
Yes.
But just through the world of that, if you work hard, you will get something. And I also want to say that I think we as parents, we have to be so mindful of what the kids do after school, because now we have a world of social media, iPads, and yes, Mila a lot on iPad, and it drives me crazy. But
she has balance, though.
If I get a little bit of that balance for her and a lot of other kids, parents who trust me to take those kids on the dance journey, that my good deed done, in life. Because
for sure.
I'm very mindful that, we have to give the kids, that other skills, whatever sport they do, whatever it is they do afterwards. It's so important, I think, to keep that mindset of them that they need to do to get the skill and to work hard, to get something. It's so important, I think, for kids.
It's so true. And like I said earlier, because of the way of the world, a lot of kids have, I think, become entitled. They don't understand working hard, and the schools are failing because there's too many kids in classes and the systems aren't set up very well. I say the schools failing, the government's failing the schools. And of course, if they're not doing extracurricular stuff as well, they can fall into depression. They don't have a sense of direction. They are entitled, and you see the way that society is changing as a result. So you're absolutely right. What kids do is really sets them up for the rest of their lives. I mean, with Milla, she obviously has really good genetic gene pool because she's got, this world champion with her dad, and then with you as a dancer. So she may well have that genetic expression to succeed, but she still has to work hard.
Oh gosh,
you can have the genetic expression without actually putting the work in and not get there. So if she does succeed in whatever she does, it will be because of the hard work and the mindset that you're plugging into her as well. And that mustn't ever be forgotten for you or for her or for anyone that's successful. Don't be jealous. I always say, if you look at successful people, study them.
Yes.
Don't be jealous. That's wasted energy. Study them. Talk to them. Listen to their stories. Find out how they got there. We're all inspired by someone. And you are, and I hope, for me anyway, and I'm sure for lots of people listening, going to be inspirational. Because if people didn't know your story before, you never know, you might have someone listening that's thinking, oh, I'm 46 and I don't know what to do with my life. I've had my kids and I never learned anything outside of school. They might listen to this and say, the time is now. You said it yourself. The time is
100%.
now.
And I've made that change myself. It was very risky and it was very sort of scary in the way that I'm going to completely sort of leave that showbiz and go into the world of that well-being. But also the perfectionist in me, I had to get all of the qualifications because I can't, sometimes it bothers me that a lot of celebrities, if you wish, or just influencers, they do all this like fitness or yoga, whatever that is, and the technique maybe not there, the knowledge maybe not there, they just have a great following. And I feel like you've got to understand that you can you can hurt people if you're not teaching proper.
You can.
And that goes to everything, I think, whether
mental
it's
health,
mental health,
coaching,
anything like that. For me, because I knew I'm going to be under scrutiny, more than anyone else.
Yeah.
If I open my business, I can always say, here's my 20-something certificates of everything I've done. More than anything, it's my kind of studying and going deeper and deeper and deeper. I'm always on the next course. I'm always on the next thing I'm studying, because for me, it's super important to evolve myself, my knowledge, but also be authentic and teach from the place of knowledge, just how I do from my dance, from dancing as well. So
you have to, and I will say that for you, there's a lot of similarities with us. I never stopped studying. And I think, like you say, it's really unsafe not to be properly qualified. When I talk to people, especially in a therapeutic way in here, the first thing they say is they feel better because they've learnt so much. And you can only teach if you really understand yourself and those intricate details of how the brain works or how the body works, and making sure that everything that you teach them, you can back up and you can provide materials, which I know you do. And I will say that about you. I know factually that you are, well, very much like your mum was, in terms of how much she read. You are very well, you study, you teach, you understand. You're in safe hands if you want to be a yoga teacher. If you, and one last question really, well, two. One, how can they enroll on your teacher course? I'm assuming you're going to do it in like 2024
perhaps. They just can always find me on social media, because they can send me a DM. And all my accounts have a blue tick besides Twitter. Now X, I refuse to pay.
No, I don't blame you
for my blue tick in there. I'm not on Twitter that much, or X anymore anyway, but my Instagram and Facebook, Rihanoff, so they blue ticked, so you can send me a DM. And I obviously will help, or just Google So Yoga, SOO Yoga, and you can see a teacher training page, and there is everything there. There is email to get in touch with me, so there is everything there. So
we'll tag that onto both YouTube and Spotify so people can link on straight away.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough for being here. I mean, I knew most of your story, but there was bits there that I didn't know, and I think you are, really truly phenomenal.
Oh, thanks.
I genuinely do, and I really respect everything you've done, and I really respect you as a person, and I hope that that's what we leave with the listeners, is that they understand a lot more about you after this. You are beautiful, and you did dance on TV, but that's just a tiny flexion of your story. The rest of it is far more important.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Really
Thank you.
Appreciate
Pleasure
it.
to be here. Thank you for listening.